Good morning, everyone. Director Gibbs is in a meeting with the governor right now, and he'll be joining us as soon as he's able. But I'm gonna just kick off the meeting and walk us through the first few agenda items. I was waiting until we at least had quorum, which I think we do now to get started. And I'm seeing a lot more people actually hop on just now, so I'll wait till everyone's in. Okay, great. Well, I'll say again, good morning and welcome to the last quarterly meeting of the Forest Health Council in 2025. It's October 29th, 2025. And yeah, we have a great robust agenda in front of us. As we get started, I'd like to recognize that the governor has appointed the Summit County Commissioner Nina Waters to join the council. She's replacing, or she's filling the seat that Clyde Church left open when he had to leave the council um, earlier this year. Thanks, Matt, for letting us know about the Google Meet. Um, Roberta, are you able to pop over into the Google Meet? I can monitor this group.
Courtney, I can do that for you. I'll be back.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So Nina Waters will be joining us later today. I think she has a commitment until 11. She was only appointed last week, so we're grateful that she'll be able to hop on for a little bit, and I know she'll be excited to join us full force in 2026. I also want to note we're still waiting to fill. There's two vacant seats. One is associated with the ranching seat. So that's someone who owns and operates a ranch and has grazing rights on federal land. So continue to explore your networks for someone who might fit that role. And then we're also still working to fill the tribal seat, and we're working with our director of tribal affairs to do that. So hopefully we'll have a few more members in 2026 as well. I'm going to go ahead and run down the roll. So Director Dan Gibbs will be joining us shortly. Director Matt McCombs.
Present.
Good morning, Director. Director Mike Morgan, or DFPC representative. Seems like no one is here quite yet. Troy Highthecker, or someone from the U.S. Forest Service, perhaps?
I'm standing in for Troy today.
Okay. Good morning, Todd. Nice to have you.
Morning.
John Ring, or someone from BLM? Okay, I think it makes sense that many of our federal partners won't be joining us today. Frank Fralzone, I don't believe I see Frank either for that reason. Samantha Albert.
Present. Good to see you all.
Good morning, Samantha. Commissioner Abe Layden. Looks like the commissioner's not here yet. Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally.
Present. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Courtney.
Good morning, Commissioner. Commissioner Veronica Medina.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioner. Commissioner Nina Waters, I know is not here yet, and hopefully will be joining us shortly. Is Esther Duke here as a proxy for Katie McGrath Novak? Looks like Esther's not here quite yet. Eric Toman. I see you, Eric.
Yes,
Good to
I'm
have
present.
you.
Sorry, I couldn't find the
No,
unmute button. Good to see everyone.
I know
Good
it's going
morning.
to take us 20 minutes to find all our buttons. Good to have you.
Thank you.
Brett Wolk.
Morning, present.
Good morning, Brett. Madeline McDonald.
Present.
Morning, Madeline. Amy Moyer.
Present. Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Amy. Mark Morgan.
Present.
Morning, Mark. Paige Lewis. Okay, Paige is not with us quite yet. I will make note that Director Morgan has joined us. Good morning, Director Morgan. Okay, Lynn Elliott.
Present. Good morning.
Good morning, Lynn. Nice to see you. Julie Stencil.
Present, good morning.
Good morning, Julie. Pat Dorsey, I believe, let me know she was not going to make it today. Skylar McKinley.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Skylar. Doing well. Senator Lisa Cutter is not with us yet. And then Representative Larry Sukla is also not with us quite yet. So we do have quorum. Thank you everyone for joining us. Is there anyone who popped on a little late that I missed in the original roll? I'm scanning, but I don't see anyone else. Okay, great. Well, let's move on then to approving the meeting minutes. We actually have two sets of minutes to approve. The first is for the August 13th meeting minutes, and these were for the last quarterly council meeting. Does anyone have any changes to those minutes?
I will make a motion. I don't have any changes, but I can make a motion for both sets of minutes if that would be helpful. I move that we approve both sets of minutes from August 13th and what was the other day? The December 15th. Is that correct?
October 14th. Sorry,
October
October
14th.
15th is our second set of minutes, and those were the minutes from the 30-year visioning meeting.
I move to approve both of those sets of minutes.
Okay, do I have a second?
This is Julie Stencil. I would second that motion.
Okay. Any more discussion, any other changes anyone would like to see on either of those? Okay, can I have I'm trying to remember how this goes. Is anyone opposed? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, great. So the meeting minutes have been approved. Now, it's been great. Recently, we've been including federal policy updates in the council meetings just for the last couple of meetings. And we have Patrick Ortiz with us from the U.S. Senator John Hickenlooper's office. So Patrick, thank you for joining us. We'd love to hear from you about what's going on in the federal policy world.
Thanks, Courtney. Good morning, everybody. I'm Patrick Ortiz. I'm the San Luis Valley Regional Director with John Hickenlooper's office. Sally sends her regrets that she can't be with you today and has asked me to give an update on some of the work that the senator in our office has been working on over the last Congress. So please know that even though the federal government shutdown is happening, Senator Hickenlooper's office remains open and committed to serving Coloradans. While we're operating at limited capacity, our team continues to assist with casework, answer questions, and help navigate federal agencies. No one wanted this shutdown, including Senator Hickenlooper. Republicans shut down the government because they refused to work with Democrats to fix the healthcare crisis that they created with H.R. 1. Trump administration's budget bill cut over $1 trillion from Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. And as it sits right now, 15 million Americans will lose their health care, including 240,000 in Colorado. And the senator has been clear from the start he will not support a Republican government funding bill until they restore Americans' health care and lower costs. If Republicans refuse to extend the Affordable Care Act's tax credits, which will expire this year, health care premiums will double for millions of Americans. Coloradans on the marketplace will pay over $1,000 more each year for healthcare. And we're still getting more estimates out on that. The senator is asking the administration to take basic action to restore Americans' healthcare and essential services like Medicaid and SNAP. He's determined to protect healthcare and these essential programs because he understands how critical they are to Colorado families and families across the country. That's why he's doing everything he can to bring Democrats and Republicans together to immediately reopen the government. On the policy side, some good news since the Senate has been working, even in a shutdown, is the Fix Our Forest Act. It's a bipartisan bill that just recently passed the Senate Ag Committee last Tuesday, and it's setting up for a vote in the full Senate here soon. The legislation received broad bipartisan support in committee, including the majority of committee Democrats and the ranking member. One of the most significant steps in moving forward in the federal wildfire policy is in this bill, because in recent decades, we really just need a strategy to streamline processes for wildfire mitigation, to work to protect communities and restore forest health, and providing for public input. We so appreciate the support of the governor, the Department of Natural Resources, and the Colorado State Forest Service, water providers, fire chiefs, and so many other folks across the state that showed support for this. Other issues we're continuing to track is the roadless rule repeal. Senator Hickenlooper strongly opposes the repeal of the Forest Service roadless rule. He's a co-sponsor of the Roadless Area Conservation Act. Secondly, the Wildfire Agency reorganization. We continue to review information about the Trump administration's proposal to consolidate federal wildfire operations in a single agency. And our office's priority is to ensure that the wildfire mitigation and response are as robust as possible for the protection of Coloradans and our watersheds. And lastly, the Trump administration has not yet released a plan for consolidation, details on staffing and assets, or an estimate of the cost of such a consolidation. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you all for the time.
Thank you, Patrick. I think this is a great time. If any council members have questions about Fix Our Forests or the roadless rule or other policy updates, this is a great time to ask them. Patrick is available. Go ahead, Mr. Morgan.
Yes, if the senator is opposed to the roadless revision plan, what does he have a plan, or is he working with someone for a plan to manage those acres such that we reduce the wildfire risk in the state?
Yeah, I think the Fix Our Forest Act is a big achievement to really get pragmatic solutions to look at that, because although it doesn't come with funding, there is wording and language in there that would allow the appropriations process to get funding for those new initiatives in Fix Our Forest. And just so you all know that Colorado, has an exemption with the roadless rule, so there's already a lot of locally driven projects working with federal agencies on fire mitigation to ensure that access can be made to certain areas for various projects to make sure that timber production can continue and grazing can continue in areas that are appropriate. So, but I can give if we want a little more detail on this roadless rule bill, I can get back with you on that. But thanks for your question. I can follow up with you, Mark, individually if that works.
If you are, I was just curious if someone was working on a plan, not even necessarily timber harvest, but if you got a plan so that we can aggressively manage those acres so that we reduce the risk, because there's a significant volume of acres there that.
Absolutely.
Patrick, I think if you have any more information on that, why don't you share it with me and I can distribute it to the council in the follow-up materials. I think people would be interested.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for Patrick? Okay. Well, Patrick, thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
I think
thank
we'll
you all.
move ahead now. We do have state policy updates next on the agenda, and I know Allison Lurch, our Associate Director for Forest Health and Wildfire Mitigation, is in another obligation at the moment. So we're going to move ahead to the Legislative Committee updates next on the agenda. The Legislative Committee, I know, has been very busy this summer with different presentations and discussions. And so Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally, the chair of that committee, is going to be sharing updates with the council on what this committee has been doing. Commissioner.
Thank you, Courtney, and thank you all. Good to see you all this morning. And yes, we've been very busy. We've been, we did take 1 month we didn't meet for, I think it was June. We took a little break, but we've been back to meeting every 2 weeks. I want to thank again the Legislative Committee for their time and commitment. We meet every Friday morning, and we have a pretty steady and full attendance, and we have great consensus building and lots of conversations. One thing I wanted to highlight, and I want to thank Courtney and Allison for helping us refine this. We had been asking the same kind of questions last year about what do you think would be a great idea or legislative, what are legislative things you might see we need to address. So we came up with a set of questions, and we can forward those to you later after this meeting, that we are now sending out before the meeting, and then having them come back after the meeting to kind of ground that we have the same questions asked of every presenter. And so we have a formal set of questions that we kind of ask them to think about before they come, and then they might build those into the presentation, or they're kind of answering them. So we have those all coming together. We also, I wanted to just update before I go into the presentations we have. We had talked about, and the full council had approved us having a breakfast with the legislators at the beginning of the session, this upcoming session. And we have booked, I wanted, Courtney, I don't know if we finalize which date, or we just have 2 dates we're still looking at, on the Thursday and the Friday, the end of January, I believe. And we are, we will, I don't think those 2 dates are some, I think it was Thursdays is what we were looking at, right? And so the last 2 Thursdays, and we're waiting for confirmation on when that is. So we're going to be asking for some sponsors to buy like breakfast burritos or some coffee and stuff to kind of help provide food and have the legislators come by. I've been working with Christina Bury from the Colorado State Forest Service on putting together some stories and information. And we are, I think Christina will share that we just been trying to make some interactive videos with some QR codes. So maybe we can save some trees and not print out all these things for legislators may walk away with and then lose those papers. So these are things they can take on their phones and maybe download and have those documents on their phones or videos to share. And we wanted to share about some projects. And so we'll have those ready to go. And we've been, I know Christina and her team have been kind of refining those, but we're really looking forward to helping educate the great work that has come out of the legislature supporting the Forest Health Council and our wonderful co-swap and fur worm programs, etc. We also are looking for volunteers. I mean, we'll be in the morning before they have sessions, so you're all welcome to come early to help us set up and to welcome them and come down to the Capitol and have some breakfast and coffee. And we'll, if you're interested in volunteering and helping set up and clean up and being a part of that, we welcome you to come and join us all. We hope that you will also all attend. And so if you will let Courtney know if you're interested in volunteering, we will all get the final details and send that invitation to you all out. And I'm hoping that you'll join us because I think it will be a really impactful morning. And if you have any questions, let us know. We'll probably keep talking about this in a fixed agenda item every other Friday until we get closer to that date. I also want to just to share, we've had some pretty impactful meetings. We've had a presentation from the Colorado State Forest Service, which was really wonderful. We've kind of lengthened our meetings, so we have a little longer for presentation and questions. We've had a great presentation from Department of Natural Resources and the programs and the work that they have done. And I won't go into all those numbers. There's some pretty amazing numbers and progress in some of those projects from both those departments. And I want to encourage you all, if you have free time like me, that you go back and watch those presentations. They're on our legislative committee. the website and those presentations, our meetings, there's some pretty great slides and information and numbers. And it was really, we were very excited to learn even more than we have before about the work that both the Colorado State Forest Service and DNR have accomplished. We also had a meeting with from Northern Water, who presented on the I'm going to get this wrong, so those of you on that committee, please help. The Wildfire Watersheds Resiliency Initiative Work Collaborative or Group Work is called WWR. So if I didn't get that right, I apologize. But we got a presentation on that work and some updates on that newly formed collaborative of philanthropy and all partners that are similar here in our Forest Health Council and industry and private companies. And so how we're working together and mostly I think the focus is trying to find sustainable funding. As we know, that's really a challenge for everyone. We also had a great presentation from the Nature Conservancy. And when we talk about prescribed fire later in this meeting, there's a great slide they had in that presentation where there was a fire in Oregon where above was a fire with not mitigated. Then there was a ribbon of treatment that had minute treatment and beneficial prescribed fire on the landscape. And then there was one that had just had treatment below that. And it really was a striking picture. I haven't seen those three treatments in those ribbons like that before. And so that was a great presentation as well. And I hope that she might go to the website and learn more about that. We won't be having a meeting, our regular scheduled meeting this Friday. We're going to move that back to the 7th. And then we also have one on the 14th. So they're going to kind of be back to back. So we can kind of honor some of getting closer to the holidays. But we're going to have a presentation from utilities and their plans and how that kind of overlaps with the work that we do and hear from them. And I think Julie Stencil and some of are from our Ledge Committee and on this call today. Then the Forest Health Council will be bringing some great information. And then on the 14th, we're going to start deliberating on our 2027, because we've already had our presentation, as you know, to the Wildfire Matters Review Committee on the 2026 recommendations. But we're going to have an extra special addition to that agenda that we're going to have the Colorado State Legislative Council come for a few minutes and discuss why and kind of share some insights and perspectives why anything with a fiscal note next year is probably not going to go anywhere and what kind of legislation would not have a fiscal note. So we're going to have, that will be a really interesting conversation, and I welcome, anyone's welcome to join us and have be parts of those conversations. So with that, as you can see, we have a lot of information happening, and we hope to have those deliberate most of November and December. And by the next time we have our full Forest Health Council, beginning of the year, that we'll have those recommendations, at least a draft of those ready for discussion in January, or at least of something somewhat starting to come on paper or on a digital paper, on a document that we are pulling out of these meetings. All I can say is there's a lot of great work being done, and we really appreciate all the organizations and partners that have come to present. And obviously, we all understand the strain on shrinking resources, but we also know how important we have to scale up for the urgent need and scale and scope of what we need to do to address all of this. And that's why I'm really excited about the work we're doing and the 30-year plan and all the collaborations. So with that, that's all I have to share. If you have any questions, Mr. Chair, I see you've joined us. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, for those updates. Any questions for Jody?
Commissioner, I just wanted to offer, I think that sounds like a fantastic idea. Thank you for all the updates. I think it sounds like a fantastic idea to put some materials together for our state legislators. I just wanted to offer, Denver Water has a vast library of resources. Our public affairs team has put together videos, articles. If that can be of help, even if you just want us to send you the raw footage of some of these treatments occurring, we're more than happy to do that. Anything you need for that effort, we're happy to support. Most recently, are putting out an article. We just had our fifth wildfire this summer start within a forest treatment that we funded, and firefighters credited it with saving the nearby community. So we now have five examples of that, just some of the materials that we have available to share, and more than happy to send you some more information.
That's wonderful, Madeline, and I want to thank you for that. That's exactly what we are trying to pull together. And Christina, as you know as well, is doing a lot, helping with a lot of that. So I'm sure she would love to connect with you. And I think whenever you have to do that, I don't know how we do that with the we had noticed when Keenan and I had met, but I just want to say yes, we welcome that. We have to, but we're just trying to find ways so that the papers don't just go with the legislators and maybe lost in a pile. We're trying to find a way to kind of help them get them on their phone, whether they're videos or information or documents. So, and I want to just open it up to the legislative, or our legislative committee. Any other points that any of you wanted to, anything I missed or anything you wanted to highlight, just in case? We've done a lot of work. We've had a lot of information. Okay, thanks, Madeline. I appreciate that offer. We'll take you up on that for sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for those updates. And I know you spoke about the new charter. We want to make sure everyone's okay with that. So let's ratify that by having a vote. Do we have a motion to support the language of the new charter?
I hadn't brought up the new charter yet.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But I think I was waiting for you to come so we could, so if you want to bring that up, be more than if you wanted to highlight that, or Courtney, I was waiting for you to come. So I hadn't gotten to that yet. I was just doing our legislative committee update. So if you'd like to do that, I turn that over to you, sir. Thank you.
Great. I'll yield to Courtney and Allison and my team to talk about that, and then okay, Courtney.
Yes, thanks, Dan. So as the council was discussing earlier this year, there is benefit in this group being aware of and tracking and touching federal policy as appropriate. And so we wanted to update the committee charter to give the legislative committee just the authority to address federal policy updates. And I think we decided our tactic was going to be slow and one small step at a time. And we've really just started with receiving federal policy updates in these committee meetings. So really that's what's happened so far. I'm going to pull up the charter and just show a couple places where changes were made to add language that would allow the committee to address federal policies. Can you all see the Word document that I have pulled up?
Yes, we can, Courtney.
Okay, great. So here I've just highlighted a few of the places where you'll see changes. Here under advisory functions, we've added the words federal legislative matters. The committee will liaise with DNR on federal policy assistance. You can see we've just sort of added federal legislation into many of the sections where we had state legislation. And I think this is going to be a continued conversation. Like I said, we're moving really slowly. The committee is quite busy. So for now, it's been updates. Another place you'll see that I have highlighted is we've added this language in coordination with DNR in a couple places. In the past, there was variations of that language. Maybe it was in with approval by DNR or in discussions of DNR. So we just tightened that up so that it's clear that as this committee and the council is moving through the legislative process, that it's done in coordination with DNR. So those are the changes that are made. The vast majority of this is the same. So those are the changes. I'm going to stop screen sharing and open it back up for questions if anyone has questions about what's been changed or what the committee is hoping to do.
Great. Thanks, Courtney, for walking through that. Any questions for her on that? Yeah, Mike?
I was just going to suggest, and maybe this is more of a question than a statement, but I'm wondering, given the structure of things in Colorado, that for certain things, obviously CDPS should be consulted on federal policy as well. I don't want to, muddy the water too much, but I think maybe the addition of CDPS is worthwhile, given the structure.
Courtney, can you put that language back up so we can see? Looks like.
I wonder if here, especially where it says the committee will liaise with DNR on federal policy assistance, we could say and CDPHE, or we could say and other state agencies as appropriate. I wonder if we can add something here that would address that concern.
Yeah, because there's times when we need to coordinate with Department of Ag or, as Mike mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
Department of Public Safety. So we need to coordinate with everyone. If it's
Mm-hmm.
prescribed fire and air quality, CDPHE. So maybe instead of having all those listed out, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
maybe like other appropriate state departments. Would that get to that, Mike?
Yeah, I can live with that, Dan. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions or comments regarding these? I know we're all kind of squinting our eyes to see if we can see.
You all should have received a copy of this. You did receive a copy of this in your email last week too, if you want to pull it up yourself.
Okay, if there's no more questions, do we have a motion to support these small modifications? Yeah, Commissioner Shattuck Manali.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve these additions to the charter as presented and amended today.
Second.
Okay, that motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or questions?
Director,
Yeah.
I see that Elizabeth Joyce has her hand raised, and I believe it might still be raised.
Okay, is there a question?
She's not a panelist, Courtney, so I don't know if she can speak.
Okay, I'm going to promote her real quick. Elizabeth is our Attorney General representative.
Sorry, Elizabeth.
Okay, good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I was just going to, I'm sorry for jumping in the middle of your motion there. But I was just going to suggest with that modification that you guys were just discussing that you might want to say other departments, as relevant, to adding in some language to make it clear that it's not liaising with every state department on every issue. It's just as determined, case by case or something along those lines. And sorry, without that language in front of me, I don't have a suggestion on the fly, but just to avoid locking yourselves into some confusion over who needs to be consulted with or engaged with on each instance.
Is this like right in other state departments as relevant? I mean, we probably don't need to coordinate with early childhood education on this.
Right. Let's see. Yeah, and would that be so would it be DNR who might be suggesting the other departments, or would that be the committee's sort of determination on a case-by-case scenario, or do you have a concept of when that would be necessary?
I think the DNR would be the lead and would bring in, because the committees under the DNR. So we would make a determination who do we need to get input from?
Yeah, so I think adding that as relevant is just helpful in that for that phrasing.
Okay. Okay. So we have a motion. It's been seconded. Any further discussion on this?
Mr. Chair, should I I just wanted to make sure my motion was still covering as amended since we made the motion after this was changed. Should I go ahead and redo the motion as amended now? Or I mean, does my motion cover? I'm just saying, I just want to make sure we're doing that my motion is correct so that we cover the changes that were made just now.
I think it's correct. I don't think we made any changes. I think we had that language as relevant on there.
Okay. Okay.
Is that right, Courtney?
Thank you.
I think it seems clear now that Jody's motion is covering these amendments.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to be just clarify. Thank you, sir.
Great. Okay, so we have a motion that's been made. We had a second. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in support say aye.
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 Any opposed say no or nay. Okay, the ayes carry it. So thanks so much for these updates. Next, we're going to move to state policy updates, and Allison Lurch is going to be the lead on this, and I know maybe others may jump in as well. I'm not sure if you all know, but Allison's position has been elevated to. I don't think we've had one of these meetings before so you know that she's been elevated to an assistant director position on Forest Health, and so we're really excited to have her be in this assistant director position. It really shows the importance within the Department of Natural Resources of this topic, and it really is a great reflection of Allison's really tremendous work within the DNR. So congratulations, Allison, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Dan. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to run through some state budget projections, a little bit about the upcoming session, some leadership changes, and then some of the upcoming bills. And Director Morgan, I'm grateful you are on too. And if we have some time, I'd love to pass it to you after this if you have anything from the DFPC side as well. As far as state budget projections go, the budget will be officially released by the Governor's Office of State Budget and Planning this Friday on Halloween, October 31st. And this will kick off an 18-month process where the executive branch's budget package will be reviewed over the next 6 months, first by the General Assembly and their staff. DNR's budget briefings and hearings with the JBC will be held in December and January, and also with the other state departments. And so we'll know how successful we are on our budget package this spring. And if approved by the General Assembly, any of our approved FTEs, full-time equivalent positions, and other funding would all be available starting July 1 at the start of the new fiscal year. But just for this group and for everyone particularly, it's just really important to recognize that just like last year, this year will be an incredibly tight budget year. So Colorado has had to manage a budget shortfall due to a variety of factors, primarily to federal tax cuts that automatically reduce state tax revenue. And then other factors contributing to these recent shortfalls include increased costs for state programs, particularly Medicaid, and then also the constraints of TABOR, the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, which limits how much the state can collect and spend. So all these factors together mean that more cuts need to be made this year to keep our state budget balanced. And just to put a finer point on this, in the Legislative Council staff's September 2025 economic forecast, the general fund is estimated to have ended this last fiscal year with a 14.5% reserve, which is close to $95 million below the statutory reserve requirement. So the general fund revenue fell by 0.4% and totaled just over $17 billion. The state controller certified a state Tabor surplus of $296 million, triggering a Tabor refund obligation of $293 million after accounting for over refunds of prior year surpluses. So for this fiscal year that we are currently in, the general fund is expected to end with a 12.9% reserve. That's about $306 million below the statutory reserve requirement. And this amount may change based on ballot measures approved at the November 2025 election and legislation enacted during the 2026 legislative session. So there's some wiggle room in that. But state revenue subject to Tabor is expected to fall below the referendum cap for the first time since fiscal year 2019-2020. So revenue is expected to remain flat and total about $17 billion. Revenue expectations were revised down for the July forecast update, which incorporated the estimated tax impacts of the Federal One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or OBBBA. So there are a lot of factors at play here, but the big picture is that the Joint Budget Committee has a challenging task ahead in identifying cuts and keeping the budget balanced under all of these circumstances. I'm going to keep going, and if you have very specific questions about the budget that way, I'll take questions, but our Daphne Gervais, our legislative director, will be the best that can answer some of the follow-up questions if they're directly for the budget, or possibly Director Dan Gibbs. So let's just move into session real quick. The 2026 Colorado legislative session is scheduled to run from January 14th to May 13th of 2026. Regular session usually lasts 120 days, but the Assembly can also hold special sessions as needed, as we saw in this last past session. In January, DNR will hold its SMART Act hearing before the Joint Ag Committee, both the Senate and the House Ag and Natural Resource Committees as well. So we always use this opportunity to highlight our forest health and wildfire mitigation work and key accomplishments from last year. As far as leadership changes, as you all know, legislative leadership plays a critical role in managing caucus priorities, calendars, and more throughout the session. So I wanted to let you all know that the House underwent a recent leadership change with the resignation of House Minority Leader Rose Puglisi. The new House Minority Leader elected by the caucus is Jarvis Caldwell, who represents El Paso County. The House Speaker continues to be Julie McCluskey of Summit County. House Majority Leader is Monica Duran of Jefferson County. And on the Senate side, Senate President continues to be James Coleman of Denver. Senate Majority Leader is Robert Rodriguez of Denver. And then Senate Minority Leader is Cleve Simpson from Southwest Colorado, which is also another fairly recent change. So as far as some upcoming bills, as we know, the Wildfire Matters Review Committee is advancing 2 bills this legislative session. The Forest Health Council's recommendation to align state statute with federal updates made to the Good Neighbor Authority Act is one of those. And so this bill will be carried by Representative Velasco. Also, a bill to recreate the Wildfire Matters Review Committee through 2031, and that's being carried by Senator Cutter. The Legislative Council is meeting on November 15th to approve these bills brought forth by the Wildfire Matters Review Committee. And so this will be the last meeting before becoming a bill. Last, I just want to share that the Forest Health Council is undergoing a sunset review process. Director Gibbs and I worked with the Department of Regulatory Agencies, DORA, on the sunset review for this council. The DORA sunset report is live on their website and makes a formal recommendation to continue the Colorado Forest Health Council, noting that the council's directive to provide legislative recommendations on an annual basis is valuable for addressing and elevating pertinent forest health needs. Therefore, the Colorado General Assembly should continue the council. So exciting news for all of us. Implementing the sunset report recommendation will be done through a bill this session. A legislative committee will meet to review all sunset reports. And at the time, the committee will vote to introduce a bill and select sponsors. And so we really look forward to engaging in this process to ensure this bill's success. And then just last, beyond these bills, DNR's legislative team is keeping an ear out for the bill proposals for bill proposals in the forest health and wildfire mitigation space. And as of right now, we have not heard of anything significant, but we will keep this council apprised of anything that intersects with all of our work. So that's my report to all of you. Director Gibbs, is it okay if I pass it over to Director Morgan or State Forester Matt McCombs if they have anything to add on a state policy update?
Yeah, sounds great.
Great report, Allison. I don't have a lot to add. I would just let this group know, of course, the other action that the Wildfire Matters Review Committee took before they sunsetted was they wrote a letter around the utilities work and doing work with utilities that around mitigation and potential, I will say, liability adjustments, but that is a work in progress. There was a bill introduced that didn't move forward in Wildfire Matters, but they've asked for a working group to work with them. The Colorado Fire Commission had already stood up a working group with utilities. It only had one meeting prior to the introduction of that, or at least the concept by Senator Marchman and Representative Velasco. So they've had one stakeholder meeting. I think we're still not clear on how the Fire Commission will help with that, but obviously it would encourage this committee to be very involved in that work as well. And I know some of you were invited to those meetings. But the other piece that I'll bring up, probably just more of a maybe for future conversations, and Allison, you can chime in here if you'd like on this too. But at the last Fire Commission meeting, excuse me, in Summit County, there was a conversation around forest health improvement districts. And so there was a bill, a law passed in, I believe, 2007 that allowed the creation of forest health improvement districts to do things around mitigation in communities. But to date, there's never been one created. So one of the commission members, Kevin Wayland, who represents special districts on the Western Slope, brought that up as a topic. And so I think that there will be kind of a formal outreach to this group, because we felt much like the prescribed fire, that was an intersection of where the Fire Commission and Forest Health, intersect with things that there. And maybe one of those, like the prescribed fire subcommittee, where we want to join forces between the two committees to move forward. So more to come on that. Just wanted to get that on the radar. And with that, I'll defer to Director McCombs.
Thanks, Mike. Fantastic overview, Allison. Nothing to add. And Director Morgan spoke specifically to the one thing that I was going to potentially talk about as we continue to look at resources and way to get to all sectors together. We have a fighting chance. This conversation around deploying this unique special district authority in some way in communities that would be interested is one that I think will be an interesting topic for this body to interface with the Fire Commission as well. So thanks for bringing that up, Director Morgan, and end of my report.
Great. I'll just add, since Mike, you mentioned and Matt too, this the forest health improvement district concept. That was actually one of my bills when I was a legislator. And so I was always grateful that it passed. And the concept was to, hey, if local communities want to create a taxing authority similar and create a new district similar to a school district or any special district, it was kind of like giving local communities and governments enabling power to do so. The one community that somewhat came close to creating a forest health improvement district was Western Boulder County, and I can't remember the year. And it was kind of like the Nederland Ward, Western part. And Mike, you may have some history better than me on it, but it was my understanding it actually was brought up on a vote, but there's so many different fire districts, volunteer districts in that area that it was my understanding that a lot of the districts really couldn't agree, and they really had concerns on who is going to be making decisions on how that money was going to be spent and how much authority those districts would have and kind of shaping, where the money would go on the ground. And it turned into this big mess, unfortunately. Um, I think there are a lot of fingers pointed on whose fault is what, but it seemed like there was a good opportunity, but then just the details, weren't really worked out with a lot of the higher ups that were really working hard on this. Is that, Mike, do you remember some of the history of that or no?
That sounds close. I wasn't
Yeah.
super close to it when it all unfolded, but from an outsider, I know there was some of that, and I think, Kevin Whalen, it just kind of brought up is that are there things that we could do? And he was asking specifically the commission, are there things that the commission could do to maybe encourage that type of work to be done? And I think there was probably as many questions as there were answers. And that are there massaging that we need to do at the legislative level, or is it an education about the ability to do this, or just an awareness that it's an option, and that the two groups could get together and maybe see if we can come up with some solutions to do that. But
Yeah. Yeah, the kicker is finding the right geographic area where voters would support, whether it's like sales tax, property tax, or some type of a funding mechanism. And, I know there's a lot of communities where you do polling and fire mitigation and preparedness, ranks really high to say the least. And even statewide, there's numbers that reflect that. Mark Morgan, I think I saw your hand up and down.
Yes, having done a lot of contracting in that very area for a lot of different agencies, I can't imagine a more contentious place to try to start that program. I can't imagine what you just stated there. I think there's a lot of opportunities elsewhere where you would have a better chance of getting a consensus and a success. And success breeds success. So I wouldn't take. I would have expected rejection there. I would have been amazed if something could have been put together, but that doesn't mean the concept or the bill is unworkable.
Yeah. Yeah, there's tools in the tool chest for this to happen. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, Mark. And thanks, Mike and Matt, for your comments. Anyone else have anything to add on any state? Actually, I'll add something. I saw at a water meeting the Speaker McCluskey yesterday, and we were just kind of catching up, and she was saying that they are really going to try to not allow late bills this year. Folks that know the Capitol well, I'm looking at James, like historically, whether it's a Senate president or Speaker of the House, quite often don't always want to say no to their colleagues and quite often allow a lot of late bills to occur. And I know the speaker said she's going to work really hard not to allow, late bills and try to have people held to the five bills that are kind of like the number that they can introduce. And, it's going to be November before we know it, and then December 1st and 2nd is right around the corner. And normally, right in the beginning of December, folks need to submit their first like 3 bill titles and kind of get the legislative concepts rolling. So most legislators have most of their bills kind of dialed in by now. But let us all know, what you hear if folks are contemplating any particular bills that any of us should be aware of. Ideally, legislators would be, reaching out to us and stuff, but um, sometimes they hear from other folks on any other concept. Do we have any legislators with us today that want to maybe add in? I don't think we do. Do we have any? I'm just kind of looking here. I don't think we do today, but it's always interesting to get their input for sure. So, okay. Well, with that, let's move on to the next update. And we have the Committee on Leveraging Resources. Is that right for my agenda that I have here too? And I know Amy Moyer's here. Thanks for being here, Amy, and for your leadership with this. And I know you've been working really hard, you and the committee, and also really appreciate your great work that you're doing on the Forest Resilient Planning Guide. That's really awesome. So let me turn it over to you for any updates that you have.
Yeah, thank you, Director Gibbs. As a reminder, I am pinch hitting and acting right now as chair for Katie McGrath Novak, who is still out on family leave. So she'll be back after the end of the year, and we'll give the chair responsibilities back to her. But I do have 3 updates on what the committee is working on. One being the Forest Resilience Planning Guide. Thank you, Dan, for the nice shout out there. I also want to give an update on some of our presentations and efforts to explore some of the top pinch points that we see in communities' ability to leverage funding. And then third, have a quick update similar to the Committee on Legislative Affairs. We have been spending some time with the Wildfire and Watershed Initiative for Resilient Colorado, the work group on looking for ways that we can coordinate and amplify efforts across the board. So I'll walk through those 3 updates. But first, the Forest Resilience Planning Guide, as Director Gibbs mentions, continues to be a major effort of this committee. It was a major product that we're excited to have gotten to the finish line, especially with the support from the Colorado State Forest Service. I think as we work towards making sure that that guide is used, we're focusing on how do we increase awareness, how do we work with staff at DNR to make sure that it's on the desks of our local elected officials, it's on the desks of our local leaders, collaboratives that could make a great use of that product. We're working on finalizing a 1-pager that can support those efforts. So I want to thank Lynn Elliott especially, who has volunteered her time and her team's time to help us format and navigate that 1-pager. So special shout out to Lynn and her team for the efforts there. I mentioned just ways of making sure that that guide stays at the forefront of people's efforts. And so an upcoming conversation, we'll be working with Allison on how do we discuss those opportunities for outreach? How do we look for ways that this guide can inform policy and legislative efforts? So I think there could be an upcoming opportunity for the 2 committees on this Forest Health Council to meet and take a look at the guide, look at how it impacts and moves forward the 30-year vision that we'll talk about more today, and the mission going forward. So there's a lot of next steps with the Forest Resilience Planning Guide that are great opportunities for this committee and this Forest Health Council. The next item, I mentioned the presentations that we've been hearing and exploring on some of the top tier pinch points that we've talked about as a committee in terms of communities being able to leverage funding. And the 4 that we've been focusing on is first, capacity, that communities and organizations often lack the capacity to compile plans or prioritize landscapes, gather the data, translate into metrics to move projects forward and identify the funding sources to do so. The second item has been match, that it is often a barrier for communities and organizations to find match, especially early on as projects are getting off the ground. The third item is the lag in timelines, that there are often timeline issues with various funding sources within the state of Colorado spectrum, but across the board between local, state, and federal initiatives in terms of how do those timelines line up? What is the lag time, even if you're awarded funding and need to contract? And in the midst of all of that, how do you move your projects forward and keep the momentum that's so critical to those projects? And then in alignment with the Forest Resilience Planning Guide is looking at funding opportunities for the earlier stages of readiness. So we often see funding opportunities tip towards more of the shovel-ready, project-based, construction-based funding, as opposed to the critical funding that's needed to support those earlier stages of readiness. And so we've had presentations from Restore, similar to the Legislative Committee. We've had presentations from the Colorado State Forest Service staff, especially on their grant and funding programs. We've had an extensive debrief from the Colorado Forest Collaborative Network, looking at some of the outcomes of their recent conference. And so some of the next steps for our committee is moving into more of that deliberative phase of what have we heard during these presentations that we may lift forward as recommendations for the full Forest Health Council, or where might there be opportunities for us to sit down with the legislative committee and offer some recommendations of what we've heard over the last year. And then dovetailing with that, I mentioned that we've been spending some time connecting with the work initiative. So we've had Julie Shapiro join our meetings with the Keystone Policy Center to think about the lens of the pinch points that we've been wrestling with as a committee, fill us in on the work effort that's really looking at how on a broad scale do we advance public-private funding initiatives that can meet the needs and the pace and scale that we're looking at from a forest health perspective. So we're very much trying to link up with that group and look for ways that there is a reciprocal effort of how can we amplify some of the ideas that may be coming out of that forum, and how can we also inform some of the discussions of that group. So we've agreed to have that as a standing item on our agendas to make sure that that link remains strong. And Commissioner Medina, this is the Wildfire and Watershed Initiative for Resilient Colorado. It's the work initiative. I think there's a couple folks here that can help explain that committee. I know there's some great connection points with DNR and the Colorado State Forest Service on that group, and they have a one-pager that we can share out as well. But those are really the key efforts and points of the report out that I have for the group. Again, similar to Jody's call, we are always looking for folks who want to join these conversations. We meet monthly right now on the third Monday of every month over the lunch hour. So our next meeting is November 17th. So others on the committee, feel free to weigh in, but that's what I have for the group today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Amy. I appreciate these updates, and thanks for filling in for Katie for sure. Any questions for Amy? Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, our next agenda item, we have a prescribed fire subcommittee made up of the Forest Health Advisory Council members and members of the Colorado Fire Commission. And we have Commissioner Shattuck McNally is on the committee as well. And so let me turn it over to both Jody and Allison to share some of the updates from that committee. And I know obviously we have Mike Morgan here too that can also chime in, and others too. So.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, Commissioner Shattuck McNally and I will both take this update. And yes, Director Morgan, anything that you might have to add. As Dan said, members of the Forest Health, a few of us, members of the Forest Health Council and of DNR are part of a prescribed fire subcommittee under the Colorado Fire Commission. Commissioner Shattuck McNally, Paige Lewis with the Nature Conservancy is also on that committee. This subcommittee meets monthly. And you should recall from our spring Forest Health Council meeting in Pagosa Springs that we heard a presentation from Katie Lobazinski with the Department of Public Safety about the newly completed Colorado statewide strategy for prescribed fire on non-federal lands. This is an amazing plan, and this is what this prescribed fire subcommittee has been diving into since April and working through some of the strategies. So I'm just going to present a little bit about what we're up to, and then I'm going to pass it to the commissioner. For priority, there are 4 priority unfunded strategies from this prescribed fire strategic plan. And these 4 strategies are really what this committee has been working on. But just to zoom out for a second, there are many more than 4. There's 21 strategies included in this plan in the areas of liability, training and certification, permitting, treatment coordination, public and political outreach, and then funding. So as I mentioned in my state policy report, given the state's challenging budget outlook, this subcommittee is working on Liability Strategy 2, which aims to clarify roles and definitions for existing liability coverage for prescribed burning. So right now we're clarifying questions and areas to address with the Attorney General's office. We're also working on Liability Strategy 3, which aims to establish a legal framework for shared or pooled insurance and liability coverage for prescribed burning. And so right now we're exploring frameworks for shared options for prescribed burners in Colorado. We're also working on Liability Strategy 4, which is to reduce barriers for qualified agency employees and other certified burn managers to plan and implement prescribed fire. So right now we're clarifying questions collectively with the effective agencies under this, which include the DNR, Colorado State Forest Service, and DFPC. And then last, we're working on Funding Strategy 3, which aims to expand wildfire response and mutual aid funding and administrative frameworks to allow for prescribed fire by state staff and their cooperator pool. So the group right now is studying state, federal, and local codes to identify areas that could be altered or leveraged to improve collaboration between entities doing prescribed burns in Colorado. If you have comments to this or are interested in engaging with the Prescribed Fire Subcommittee, the door is open and we welcome you to reach out to Katie Lobazinski, who is running that subcommittee. So I'm going to drop her email in the chat if you're interested. But that's the end of my report, and I want to pass it over to Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally.
Thank you, Allison. Allison, you just really comprehensive and thorough presentation of what we're working on, and I just wanted to maybe build on that a little bit and then talk about kind of where I wanted to share the Forest Health Council, kind of that overlap with our 30-year vision that I think is really important. And I want to point out a few of those areas. One thing I wanted to also share, we have this wonderful implementation planning. We're trying to, there's a lot of recommendations, but that's the magic sauce is how we implement all of these. And so we do have all these clarifying questions, and we have them on this big Excel spreadsheet and who's on team assignments, and we've broken into these teams and trying to address that because these are fairly large, complex things to tackle and try to look at. What's the strategy? Who is responsible? What's currently available? And as Allison said, is it a federal, state, or local? And we also have we're looking at what is a short-term timeline, like within a year, what's a medium term, and what's long-term. So medium would be 1 to 3 years, and long-term would be 3 to 5. And then also just looking at how we overlap that all with and I know maybe I'm repeating you, Allison, so let me know, nod at me if I'm starting to nod you. Repeat you, but also how does this all overlay with key funding deadlines like funding cycles, legislative calendars, and also, counties have a different funding, or cities have different, and counties have different budget cycles and different deadlines and processes, and we all know everyone's kind of strained with resources. So how do we collaborate all these things? And it's been, I would say it's really getting into the weeds of, I would say, of getting some really in-depth policy, and the implementation, I think, is being very thoughtfully approached. And there is a lot of great work by Katie trying to at least wrangling someone like me with a really crazy schedule. So I just really appreciate the work that she's doing, and Allison and everyone on the committee, and the subcommittee being having members from both commission, I think, is really, really important. So I wanted to also just share with the council, just kind of where I think it's really important, how I feel like this is kind of the connection between the Forest Health Council and the Colorado Fire Commission. And it's kind of really that overlap in a lot of ways, as we mentioned even today with talking about federal policy and having coordination and liaison between all the relevant departments, is that we're talking about the 30-year vision today. And really that 30-year vision for Forest Health Council includes sustainable forest management and prescribed fire as a huge and big component. And I think that is also kind of important as we're looking at this implementation, and kind of always keeping that North Star of kind of our vision and what that looks like, and what our vision and where we're headed. And I wanted to share again that slide, and maybe I'll try to find that. I think Courtney and Alice, that slide was with the Nature Conservancy, with that fire that had the three different ribbons right next to each other, and the prescribed fire one that had mitigation and prescribed fire is so striking. And so I think that I'm a visual person. That was really impactful for me. I just still keep that picture from the Nature Conservancy in my head as I was reading through the 30 vision. But I wanted to kind of point out the mindset and culture shift is one area where I think this is also important for that overlap between of the Forest Health Council and Fire Commission, because we talk about in there, we haven't approved this, but it says we support forest management, nurture resilient communities, and coexist with fire. And I think that is where I see as kind of also that is kind of prescribed fire is mentioned or in there embedded, and also fire adapted forests and communities. This is also kind of where we think this is in that area, talking about fire managers restoring the ecological role of fire safely. And so it may not just jump out at you, but I wanted to share, I think there's just lots of areas in our 30-year vision where prescribed fire is integrated and integral. And it's really been some great work. I'm learning from some really great subject matter experts, but also trying to bring in that public policy and local government voice of okay, how does this look in policy, and where does this come financially? But I think as this implementation Excel spreadsheet, as we're looking and diving into that, it's really helping us think and ask good questions. And so I always think good solutions start with good questions. So I wanted to kind of emphasize that. Thank you for letting me present, Allison, and any questions?
Great. Thanks so much for these updates. Any questions? This particular group. Mark.
Just one. I was dealing with the liability side of this in the past several years. And one of the things that I found helpful at the time, I had the opportunity to kind of survey how other states were handling it. And I would assume somebody has reached out to our neighbors, how they handle a liability on the prescribed fire situation. And in the past, I kind of knew the state foresters in New Mexico and Arizona and Wyoming, so it's kind of easy to talk to them. But that information is dated, and I would assume that somebody's already reached out to our neighbors to see how they deal with it. Sometimes we don't have to reinvent the wheel, we just have to adopt something that works. So just a suggestion.
Great. I don't know. Anything you want to add? Maybe Matt or Mike? Any?
Yeah, certainly. I think through, in particular, on the National Association of State Foresters and the Council of Western State Foresters, we have a lot of consistent interaction. I think if this group was interested in sort of open up communications, either through the subcommittees of those organizations or direct with other states, we'd be absolutely happy to facilitate. But would just add that we're often in dialogue around the similar topics as we're all sort of facing the same issues. But we'll certainly keep that at the forefront of our mind, Mark, that like there's good ideas we can repurpose here in Colorado that have already shown success in other states. We're all about that for sure.
I figured you were on top of it. I just was in hopes that was the case.
Yeah, and we share boundaries, right? And so we try to coordinate even in that respect as well, acknowledging fire and forest health and watershed health. You know, what goes on in the Rio, right, is really important in New Mexico and everyone else downstream. So we have those nexuses already hardwired in. But I appreciate the reminder that we should constantly be looking for working models that we can make work here.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I'd add, I'll defer to Vaughn here in a minute. He can add a couple other things, but great points, Mark. I think, what's that saying that when you borrow a good idea from one person, it's plagiarism, but when you borrow good ideas from a lot of people, it's research. So I think we're all on board with doing all the research we can possibly do to get as many good ideas as we can to get this work being done, in areas that make sense and in ways that make sense. So Vaughn, do you want to chime in? I know you and Paul have been having some conversations about it.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And if there's time, I can be pretty brief with some related updates. But yeah, to Mark's question, yeah, I think there's a lot of whether it's stealing, borrowing, or research between the states, related to certified burner programs, cash claims funds, those kind of things. And I know the subcommittee's doing a lot of work on that. So I think quickly, just the others did a good job of talking about the strategy. I think some of the key pieces to me are, there's a range of recommendations, like Allison said, and a variety of other, in a variety of areas, some of the barriers that we've had to prescribe fire. And what I like is, it's not just, hey, we need a bunch of money thrown at it to fix it. There's a range from FTEs to money. Yeah, that's what we're going to need to really do it right down the road. But they're looking at rules, they're looking at legislation. Are there some permitting issues? Whatever it is, kind of a range of solutions, which I think is really a good way to approach that. And again, knowing that we're going to have some increased capacity to really do it right in the long term, but in the short term, what are some easy fixes? And how do we leverage the resources we have now to kind of be efficient with that? So that's one thing I wanted to mention. And then again, I'll try to be pretty quick regarding Senate Bill 25007, which went through the legislature last spring. There were a few things in that. One of them was to start a prescribed fire cash claims fund. California and some other states have that. But basically, the idea is, if people who conduct the prescribed burning meet certain standards and requirements, then they are eligible for this cash claims fund to pay for potential damages and really try to help whittle away at that liability barrier. What we were able to get in place last spring is not the ideal or the A+ solution. There's about $100,000, I believe, if I remember right, in that fund. And only so much can go into any one claim. But we were able to establish the program and establish the fund, which can be very difficult in state government. So given, like we heard, where we were at financially last year and this year, that is a win, I think. And then what we're doing as far as implementation of that right now is our folks are working on, a plan registration fee structure, how claims will work, and the rulemaking process of that, and then really working closely with the Attorney General's office to get that set up. And then we will be going through the state rulemaking process, where there will be a stakeholder input and comment on how that cash claims fund will work. The rules will also, I believe, probably the route we're going to go as far as that reciprocity. If you come from another state or another agency with similar training and qualifications to our certified burner program, recognize what you bring to the table and not make folks go through another process again. So kind of working through that, and then carrying off of that would be what we're hoping to do is create a state of Colorado prescribed fire portal. And a lot of people want dashboards and portals, and so they have that information kind of easily accessible. And so what we've started the process of looking at what that should include. What other source of information and databases are out there? Like CDPHE has some stuff on the smoke permitting and that. So we're trying to not reinvent the wheel totally, but do create some kind of a centralized place where certified burners can be listed and run the program administration both for that and reciprocity. If you're going to be in the cash claims fund, where would be where you register your plan, and kind of have some centralized access to all of these rules, policies, legislation, things like that. And then ultimately, if we can use have some GIS based visualization in there of where the projects are. So we think we've got a good idea, again, hopefully to incorporate data and other sources of information into a central point. Something like this will probably take a year to a year and a half. And then maybe the last thing I think with Senate Bill 07, we were very fortunate to get another prescribed fire specialist position in DFPC. So we went from a whopping 2 to 3, but we'll take it. It's still better than what we had, to both increase our internal capacity as well as supporting our partners. We're working on some updated position descriptions for that second position in our existing one. And then Kirk will be kind of managing the cash claims fund, the portal, and all of that, which will include a lot of work with the Attorney General's office and OIT to get that up and running. But just sorry for being a little long-winded there, but a few things I wanted to share with the group. So thanks.
That's great. Thanks, Vaughn, for those additions. We appreciate that. Does anyone else have anything that they want to add? Okay, seeing none, let's take a little break. Let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back at 10:35, and I believe we'll have the 30-year vision to then discuss. So come back at 10:35. See you, everyone. Okay, we'll get started in just a moment here. Okay, let's rock and roll. So welcome back, everyone. Hope you all had a wonderful break. So now we're moving into the 30-year vision for forest health in Colorado. And this endeavor has been a major undertaking for this council, and also it's fulfilling our legislative statutory duties, which is very, very important. And before I turn it over to Becca Smolsky, I just want to just recognize, Becca, you and your amazing, great work. You've helped guide us through this process for, I don't know how many meetings, and you've met with smaller groups, you've met with a lot of different stakeholders, kind of sorting through and refining all the different ideas along the way. And we really couldn't have gotten to this spot without you. So I just, if we were all in the same room, I'd say thank you so much. Let's all give her a round of applause. But yeah, Becca, thank you for your amazing work to help us get to this spot. So let me turn it over to you now and let us know where we're at now.
All right. Thank you, Director. And it's been fun. So I'm glad that we're coming to this
Sure.
meeting today where I think that we're going to get to something that you can start using instead of just talking about what it looks like. So hopefully those slides are showing up okay. And I am also going to just give a quick overview this morning of little changes that were made to what you received on Friday from when it went out for public comment. So it's been a lengthy process to get to this point, and I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on the handful of changes that were made from the input that we've received most recently. And then I'm going to tag team and really turn it over to Allison to lead us through rollout and making sure that we're moving on to the next stage. You all are able to move on to the next stage with this. So overview of what we've done, changes that have been made, and then hopefully adoption, followed by most of our discussion this morning being on the rollout portion. And I did receive feedback from the public comment portion from a couple of members of the Forest Health Council. Thanks, Brett and Madeline, and as well as staff. And then Jonathan Coop from Western Colorado University and Ryan Bronson compiled input from the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. And those were the more robust comments that I got feedback on from the stakeholder review. So not a huge amount. Maybe it was really close. I don't know. But so I just want to share these changes. This isn't the time to wordsmith. This is your living plan, and adjustments can and should continue to be made by you all. And I haven't received any adjustments since Friday, so I'm going to see if I can find my chat menu here. You know, all the menus go away when you change and start presenting. There we go. So I'm dropping for you what Courtney sent out at the end of the week into the chat, so you can see kind of just a final document. I would hope this document isn't really the public-facing version, but something that people will be able to access the language on the website down the road on the DNR website. So let's get into the changes that were made prior to what you received on Friday. If there's anything that was added that really rubs you the wrong way, that's the only thing I really want to hear today. I can take it back out. Okay, but hopefully these adjustments all make sense and all the comments that have been made have been incorporated. So some additional goals, an additional action based on feedback from Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, that we're missing the effort to instill mindset and culture shift in the elected officials and agency leadership. And so there were a couple of pieces added to incorporate that, a whole goal and action around instilling a mindset of long-term forest health and wildfire resilience among the elected officials and agency leaders, with a couple of actions to that down here at the bottom. Sorry, the first few were straightforward, so I didn't have them in my notes. Let me back up just a sec. There was a comment from Elk Foundation, which I also think reflects Director Gibbs' really early input on the vision about needing this local capacity to actually do the work. So there was an added action around building up that local capacity. He had kind of called out specifically Conservation Corps, and I just made that a little bit broader to say Conservation Corps, Swift Crews, interns, and the forestry and wildfire mitigation workforce efforts. And then we added to the list of organizational days that you might participate in, and we want to see increased participation in, the National Hunting and Fishing Day to the list of days of action. And a few additional programs were added to private land stewardship programs that weren't in the list. So just being a little more inclusive. Those are all of the changes to mindset and culture shift. I feel like they were pretty straightforward. As I go through these next pieces, you will see typically new stuff on these next pages for each theme is in orange, and then there's some strike through if there's like modified language. These were all additions on this page, so I didn't do that because it's a little bit easier to read in white. The functioning forest ecosystems and resilient watersheds, for how much is in that section and what big part of the plan it is. I think it was really close because there weren't a ton of changes. Madeline made a couple of comments and we adjusted just words to clarify that we wanted to track forest health progress across all lands. It was kind of more specific to that. It just ended there before. And then there was a comment that tracking and monitoring should involve the U.S. Forest Service to maximize efficiency, and the results should be available to parks and wildlife biologists and the public. So in order to address that, that's where we added the across all lands and making the data widely available. Per Madeline, we removed the dollars spent treating drinking water should be an indicator of our forest health progress. Going to be really difficult numbers to get, so we just struck that from one of the potential indicators. And then a few language changes around aligning fuelscape and riverscape treatments, that we don't want to just streamline public funding. We want to streamline all funding across those two areas, and then just changing the framing from return on investment to avoided loss and cost. There had been wording that was a little bit goofy in here. The action said, strengthen seed collection, storage, and planting following disturbances with seeds specifically from 4 Colorado landscapes through a nursery inventory to guide growth and the CSFS nursery, and investment in tracking of where seeds are used and success rates. Way too much complicated wordy, so that was split into a couple sentences here for clarity at the end around improving collection and storage. And then saying that it might involve inventory usage and success rates in collaboration with the CSFS nursery to guide collections and growth, and utilization of tools to guide resilient restoration. That was mostly all changed for clarity. The end piece and the underlining on tools for guiding resilient restoration. So in response to input that we needed to that this was all missing the context that as climate conditions become warmer and drier, we'll need to expand novel and experimental approaches to sustaining forest ecosystem functions, which require substantial investment. We're falling further behind the planting curve and planting future adapted tree species. So there was kind of a lot there in this comment from Jonathan Koop at Western Colorado University. And to address that without getting into climate issues within this plan, I grabbed the climate restoration tool and linked it in here as one excellent tool that could be used to guide more future smart restoration. So there are a few places like that where we have stuff linked that are tools that we can call out, you all can call out and use in the future implementation here. In fire adapted forests and communities, there was this comment that we need more on the full gamut of facts, strategies, live wildfire ready, neighborhood ambassador, Firewise, insurance partnerships. And it was really just kind of entirely lacking anything on that. There's just this goal that every county has an updated and actionable community wildfire protection plan and has adopted at least the statewide minimum wildfire resiliency code, which I didn't seem to get at this other comment on the full gamut of fire adapted community strategies. So everything in orange here was added to address that. To better protect people and property from wildfires and improve property insurance availability and affordability. Not really super measurable, but gives us some space for actions around that, including increasing participation in voluntary and required mitigation measures, including the Forest Action Plan, living with wildfire strategies. So calling back to the Forest Action Plan already, having a lot on that within it and doing a little crossover there. And then promoting place-based efforts for wildfire risk reduction activities, reducing structural ignitability, and establishing and enhancing evacuation routes, including through local site assessments, mitigation incentives, and just some examples of those. And then 2 additional actions that were already in here under that CWPP goal that seem to fit better under this other goal of protecting people and property and improving insurance availability, affordability, were just moved to this section. The other pieces from Brett are clarifications around pods and just changed language, so none of the intent changed. It was just really kind of cleaning up some of the language around policies around retreatment and investment in retreatment, and language around improving potential operational delineation boundaries. Then I hope Julie's on today. I'm not sure if I saw her earlier, but had a little bit of back and forth, which great. I'm glad to see you here. Because this is a piece I don't feel like we were able to resolve when this went out Friday. So if you have anything here, great. But the section on utilities in here was focused around having all plans and had really specific timeframes to it within a few years. And then had this call out to an example in from California that was really kind of unnecessary. I considered putting it as like a little sidebar call out, but removed that before that was sent to you last week. So right now it reads all electric utilities have wildfire mitigation plans and improve infrastructure protection measures and miles of line mitigated each year. Coordinated mitigation efforts ensure investment in utility hardening grows the overall resources for mitigation and biomass utilization across the state. And then there's an action that State Forest Service will work with the Public Utilities Commission per Julie's comment that the Utilities Commission already gathers your utility infrastructure hardening projects into the Forest Tracker to track the progress on hardening the utilities to the extent possible. Some data may not be available publicly. Julie, I saw you come up and put your hand up. Did you want to add anything, or does that work for you?
I wasn't sure if I need to otherwise be called on, but thank you, Becca. First, appreciate all the work on this. What you've put together is amazing. Appreciate the incorporation of the requested edits. I do think that you captured my comments. I mean, I would note all utilities aren't necessarily treated the same as, for example, some of the bigger utilities like Xcel Energy and and others. So because this is a living, breathing, sort of growing doc, I think what you've done works. I would note that the comment, and I was going to get to this at the end, the comment that you struck here about the utility investments in California, etc. The document that was attached to the materials that went out to the larger committee, in the, I guess what I would almost call the preamble, it looks as though that wording that you struck here in the section that you're highlighting appears to maybe have been inadvertently dropped in at the beginning of the document. So it was interrupting a different thought, and I think it's just a typo. So I can certainly circle back with you on that. Yeah, it's at the very, so if you're sort of dropping into the initial portion of the document and under authority, I guess it's technically, it looks like it's the second paragraph, right? And you're starting to talk about the role of the council and how the council as the stewards maintain the vision for the governor, DNR, and the General Assembly. That portion about California and the utilities ended up interrupting that thought. So just wanted to flag that. I'd certainly support.
Yeah, it was probably stuff at the end we were working on. Yeah, okay. Thank you. I will highlight that and we'll make sure that that is removed. So thank you for that. I'm just going to put a little strike through on my doc on that right now so it doesn't get lost. Appreciate that. And thanks for letting us, thank you everybody for letting us go through that piece and make sure it was resolved. That's appreciated. Cross-boundary collaboration, second to last theme here. Great suggestions and recommended changes to this section, I thought. Actually, just really good feedback all around from those of you who did were able to take the time to give some feedback. Brett was doing some suggestions here to make sure that it was really clear who was going to participate in forums, and utilization of the Colorado Forest Resilience Planning Guide was directed at a level higher than just like forest collaborative groups, but it should also be guiding elected officials, agency leaders, and funding entities. And so that's what that whole section on the left is just clarifying that. And then within that section that was to this goal, increasing implementation and adaptive management toward more effective projects across all lands. There was a comment from Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation that forest collaboratives have been useful tools in many national forests where forest managers have attempted to address diverse interests at the front end of potential projects rather than at the tail end through litigation. However, serial litigation environmental groups often bypass the collaboratives and sue anyway. Strengthening collaboratives needs to involve reducing the financial incentives that special interests have in filing lawsuits to prevent active forest management. I thought that was a really interesting call out around that litigation aspect not being something that we had specifically addressed. That was a really clear barrier in some cases to getting projects on the ground. So without like calling out any of your groups or anything, I did put this added sorry, I can't click on it. I can just point. This added action about examine strategies between forest managers and conservation organizations to increase collaborative participation and reduce costly, timely, intensive litigation, such as developing transparency of legal fee recovery and rewarding leadership in collaborative engagement. So there's some such as ideas there, but the main point is like, is there somebody who wants to look at strategies for increasing the upfront and reducing the back-end litigation? That was an add-on that I thought was an important one to highlight here for you all. I'm highlighting all the changes, but wanted to make sure you knew where that came from. There were just a couple of other minor changes, I believe primarily still from Brett down here on updating language, but it's to a different goal around socializing the Forest Resilience Planning Guide, that we're not just socializing it as a resource for environmental planning and collaboration, but adding in that it directs technical and financial resources and making collaboration more effective. So wanted to get that higher level use of the Forest Resilience Planning Guide into here. And add in and this was a Brett comment as well, actively promoting the Forest Tracker's use and advocating for appropriate funding to support Forest Tracker development, communication, and applications. So it does add a funding element to that per Brett's language. And then one diverse, consistent funding in forest product markets was clearly very close. And a call out from Jonathan Coop with Western Colorado was that there was nothing to incentivize or support market development. And so, yeah, he said incentivize marketing and use of local wood products. So this action was added because there wasn't anything in there for that. So those are all of the changes, additions that I have. And just, are there any questions or major concerns before you guys look at adoption time? Yeah, Courtney.
Hi, Becca. I'm wondering if you can go back to slide 7, fire adapted forests and communities. There was a new goal added about better protecting people and property from wildfires and improving property insurance availability and affordability. And it talks about promoting place-based efforts for risk reduction and, structural changes, site assessments, mitigation incentives, defensible space, things like that. And I think mostly the insurance piece. I just wanted to try to figure, because we hadn't said anything about that before. I think before it was like, let's engage insurance partners. And I just want to maybe have a conversation with the council and hear if that makes sense. And yeah, Lynn, would love to hear from you if it makes sense to add this. If it's something we have control over, and maybe it's still something we add even if we have no control over or our partners. So
Yeah. And I'll just add that,
knowing
like,
that.
as far as the section, I want to be careful about getting into wordsmithing here, but I do think I tried to keep it outside of the realm of like, here's things that insurance companies need to do to adjust, and instead just incorporate some of the actions that may eventually result in more favorable conditions for insurability into this section, right? So by saying, look, we want to increase participation in these effective voluntary required mitigation measures, that's like a pretty baseline thing that then potentially creates a better environment for that. So yeah, Lynn.
Thank you. My apologies for missing this. My computer froze up and I had to disconnect and come back in. So I actually missed this slide. And I appreciate the focus on mitigation here. The one thing that I would caution on is we don't want a requirement. Mitigation is the number one thing that can lower a property's risk and increase its insurability. But as an industry, we want to stay away from forced mitigation incentives. Because to your point about place-based, our focus is also on community-based. And making sure that the perimeters of areas in particular are home hardened to try to protect the interior structures a little bit better. So I have no problem adding this. I want to stay away from, to your point, Rebecca, any insurer requirements in here. But I appreciate the recognition and mitigation.
Yeah, there aren't any additional actions in that section that aren't shown here on the screen that say anything for what insurance companies, brokers, division of insurance should be doing or requiring. Yeah, Abe?
Yeah, thanks you guys, and wonderful job with this. I mean, I think you've really just captured all of our thoughts and perspectives in such an elegant and useful way. And I really, I'm like Jody. I really like I'm a visual person, so I think that front page continues to be really nice. On this specific point, I just to answer Courtney's question from a council perspective, we did talk about this at length, and I think I probably led that discussion. For most of us, and certainly from a county perspective, insurability is paramount. It's almost second to being able to mitigate and control for wildfires. So the lack of insurance and the inability for property owners and businesses to obtain insurance because of the way in which we are managing our forests is really significant when we have a people first perspective. So just wanted to include that and just applaud you all for include. I think this is important language. And, to other points that were made, it is, I think, broad enough and general enough that we're not, I mean, look, we can't mandate anything anyway. So I don't think we're at risk of, creating rules because we really can't. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Abe. Yeah, Courtney?
I will just say then that my concerns are I'm lowering my flag. It was just good to hear that that the people who felt strongly spoke up and shared their support for what was written.
Thanks, Allie.
Let me lower my hand. Thanks, Becca. Going back to the cross-boundary collaboration slide.
Maybe.
It's been going great so far today. Thank you so much. In the added action in the upper right portion of the screen, Becca, I'd like to recommend that we basically put a period in the sentence after the word participation. So that we can still have the idea of that collaboration and working together with forest managers and conservation organizations, but just removing the specifics about time-intensive litigation and costly time-intensive litigation. We understand that that's what it is and that's what it happens, but that would be my recommendation to just put a period there. And if we wanted to, it also could be a comma. Sorry, I don't have my readers on. So to increase collaborative participation, and for rewarding leadership in any.
Yeah, I think that's one piece of it. It really was written to try to address that comment. And if you guys want to remove it entirely, or like this isn't a strategy Forest Health Council wants to say that is a part of the plan, that's fine. I would just suggest removing it altogether, because if we just end it there, it skips the piece of what the comment came in as, saying that serial litigation environmental groups often bypass collaboratives and sue anyway, or participate in collaboratives and then sue anyway. And so this is this little piece of like, hey, if we want to have less of that happening in the state, then we need to look at why it's happening and incentivize the other side of it. So I would just kind of, I guess from my perspective on why I added it in there based on the comment, I would suggest either striking it entirely or keeping aspects of recognizing the litigation as a barrier to getting projects done across boundaries.
Yeah, well then I guess I would, if it's in either, I respect that and I respect that comment, but I think if it's in either or, then I say my suggestion would be to remove it for now.
Okay. Lynn, did you have a comment on this item?
Well, I I didn't initially, but given the fact that legal system abuse is such a problem and a growing problem in Colorado, I would advocate for whoever put that in to keep the reference to reducing costly litigation, but that was not why I had to comment. So I'll hold mine. It is about the slide, but not about that.
Okay, yeah, keep your hand up and we'll come to that. Commissioner Shattuck McNally, do you have something on that?
Yeah, thanks, Becca. And I'm kind of echoing Allison's comments. I'm wanting, I agree about the period and what it looks like at the rest. I appreciate the comment, and I do think that's what we're trying to address. But it seems when we put in, lots of qualifiers like costly and then time intensive, I think maybe we take out costly because I think that's kind of implied, and with litigations we know it's costly, but maybe just time intensive, because also time it takes a lot away from the process, and I think that speaks volume. And I'm wondering, because it says and rewarding leadership and collaborative engagement, I feel like that has to be a separate statement from all of that, because I think when you have it all put in together, it seems like there's several actions there, and when we have them kind of all one statement, I kind of like to leave with the positive. And I think that there's kind of a big negative in there that kind of distracts from the two positives. I guess that's kind of where my thoughts are. Thank you.
Yeah, that's helpful. I wonder if I think it would keep the intent and maybe be less inflammatory or something. Somebody wouldn't feel like they were being targeted about litigating, because lots of times that is what needs to happen. But if we say just reduce time intensive litigation, sorry, and put the period there, because these such as are like things that you might look into as strategies, right? And then the main point of the action is to examine what's going on. And so maybe getting into those details of transparency of legal fee recovery or rewarding leadership and collaborative engagement are maybe steps too far for the initial. So just a thought, and maybe keeping that intent with a little less detail. And I might even be able to, no, I can't, can I escape and show you guys what that looks like without it being tiny? I don't know if I can do it without it being tiny, but that would, for any of you with really good eyesight, that would be going like this. And back to. Commissioner Medina, do you want to add anything to that? Or
Yes, thank you. I agree with Allison. And Commissioner Jody, I just feel like it's negative, and I just don't feel like the litigation piece. I think we all understand it. We live in a world that is very litigious, and I just don't think that is where we want to go with this document. So I don't think it's all or none. I think we should have examined strategies between forest managers and conservation organizations to increase collaborative participation, period, because that is a good point. I don't think we need the negative piece with it. Thank you.
Okay. And now I'm hearing back on the other Allison saying you're okay with leaving in the litigation. I think this one might even be worth a vote to just get a sense of everybody, instead of everybody having their piece on the comments on whether we keep the reference to reducing time intensive litigation or not in this section. Would that be okay? Dan, is that all right with you if we just kind of, because I feel like I'm hearing lots of different pieces and this could go on for a while. Sorry, I think I still have you on mute.
Yeah. Let's kind of flesh this out a little bit too, to see if there's more questions and stuff before we vote, maybe. I don't know if there's anyone else that has their hand raised or anything. Is there? Or maybe there's not. Okay, Mark.
Yeah, I just think that this is a vision document. That's what we're writing here, is a vision. We can't have every possibility in there, so I would say take it out, because you're trying to you're trying to write for something there's any number of possible outcomes that are going to come from this vision statement. So trying to address them all, I think, is kind of a waste of time.
Okay.
Hey, Brett.
Yeah, I appreciate the conversation. I kind of like what Marcus said and others. This is a vision document, and what I'm hearing from the statement is the vision is we want to support proactive collaborative engagement and finding consensus, but we don't want to restrict the use of litigation as a tool when necessary, right? Is that the vision? I think that's what I would propose is the vision. And so I don't know that I like the time intensive and the negative connotation still in litigation. I think keeping that as the vision is let's collaborate together and not have to use litigation is I think what I'm hearing as a tool, as the vision, but we don't want to exclude litigation as a tool in the vision.
So Mark, you would recommend what Allison said earlier and say period at the end of participation, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's where I'm landing as well.
I like that too. But Skylar, what are your thoughts on this?
I would just play devil's advocate and say that I like keeping litigation in there because it's a very real sort of Damocles. And also, even as a vision, if you take that out, then you're just saying we'd like to examine strategies to promote collaboration, which is, I think, so intrinsic to the work that it's almost not worth saying, right? So if you're going to have a bullet saying we want to promote collaboration, I think you also need to follow up with, and we know we've done that if it reduces time-intensive litigation. Otherwise, I think it's, no offense, kind of a nothing burger.
And I would say I think that those aspects of encouraging the collaboration are already woven into this whole section. So that was a way to kind of in writing this to try to balance this idea that we want to reduce litigation by saying we're doing that with more front end incentives for the collaborative work.
Okay, so I guess Allison, Courtney, help me out with the vote. I think we're kind of looking at, do we have a period at the end of participation and then reduce the rest? Or keep most of it and then also keep that intensive litigation and strike everything else? Are those the two options?
That's what it sounds like to me right now are the two options.
Okay. So who wants to, let's see, how are we going to vote here? Guess
If
you can, yeah.
If you would like, I could just drop these in well, I wanted to do this adoption, but maybe we could talk about some of the how we're going to use it, and I could just drop those into chat as like an A or B, and we could get everybody's A or B. That might be a little bit easier.
Does that sound all right with everyone?
That's what I was going to suggest. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, Becca, why don't you do that then, and then
Okay.
we'll just have to keep track of who's saying what, but
And let me just
more or less keep litigation or not, right?
Yep.
Language, that's kind of.
Yep.
Lynn, you have a question or comment?
Well, while Becca's doing that, I could bring up my other item on this. There was reference when it was presented about cross-pollinating with the Forest Resilience Planning Guide as much as possible, and I'm very supportive of that. And I did send to Courtney this morning during the break the final one-pager that I got. So we would be happy to share that with the group, when it's appropriate. I know we've already moved on from that agenda item, but since it came up here, I just wanted to put that marker out there. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Lynn.
Oh, costly shouldn't be in there. I apologize. I grabbed it even though it was cut out. Costly is not in B. So if y'all just drop in the chat, we can see from your names, and I will adjust it to the majority on there. Were there any other comments on any of the other sections while that's happening if you're already got your votes in? I have to.
Okay, has everyone voted? Is everyone who's keeping track of this?
Yeah, I was trying to add it up as we go, but
I can do some counting, but I'll also need a
Okay.
few minutes for it.
Okay.
Honest.
Yeah, Becca, is there any other items you could update us on while we wait?
Nope, I think I would just let, I think I can make that adjustment based on whatever that count adds up to. And then sorry. And then I would love, an adoption based on that. I'm sorry, I'm getting click happy here. It's not letting me move my notes where I want to. So if somebody is willing to move that forward, I think that's where we're at, and it would just be with whatever the results of that vote were, obviously, on that adjustment.
Okay.
Well, I'm pleased to make a motion to adopt Colorado's 2055 vision for forest health.
I'll second that.
Great. And Mark, were you seconding it as well? I see your hand up. Oh, you're on mute. Oh, you're still on mute. We can't hear you.
I was just going to make that motion, and I want to also say that the fine points that we've been adjusting here does in no way detract from an incredible body of work that Rebecca has done here, and I think we should note that and very much our appreciation. Thank you.
I second and third and fourth that for sure. Yeah, thanks, Mark, for making those comments. Courtney, do we have any outcome of that vote?
Not yet. I'm still going.
Okay.
I'm noting each person's vote.
Okay, since we have a motion and a second, I think it's okay to support what we have and then you just plug in whether it's A or B. Is everyone comfortable with that? Okay. All those in favor of supporting the 30-year vision, the 2055 vision for forest health, signify as aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed, say nay. And yeah, congratulations, all of us, and especially Becca. Thank you for all of your amazing work to help organize all this, and just amazing. So thank you, thank you. So I think we turn it over. Maybe Becca and Allison, you want to kind of talk about next steps here? I see Julie's hand is raised. Was that from before? I just want to double check.
It was for after, but I think your question to Allison may get at my question, so I'm going to put my hand down for the moment.
Okay. Okay, great.
Okay. Before we get into the rollout, and Becca, unfortunately, we still see your notes right in front of the
Okay, I'm
screen.
trying to. I have to stop. I'll stop share and reshare with you guys in a sec here while you're
That
queuing it.
sounds good. I can also share my screen if we need to. But Dan, before we go into the rollout discussion, Roberta put in the chat that there's a tie in the votes for the language. So I guess as we're talking about the rollout, we're going to need to figure out a path forward for this section. We must, and I just, before we go into rollout, making sure everyone that is part of the council did vote. And if you did not, please put your selection of A or B in the chat. Mark,
Mark, you have a question or comment?
I was having trouble with the chat part of this. My vote is to take the language out if it's not recorded. Okay?
All of it. Just take the section out.
If I
That's
was
fine.
recorded, okay?
And if there's that much kind of equal, I mean, is there anybody who's not okay with that? So we just drop that section? Strongly. Take your time, raise your hand.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. We'll just scrap that addition and note that it's there. There's side comments and history there. So
Thank you. Thank you, Becca, and thank you everyone for your discussion on that, especially since it was something that I brought up. I appreciate you all. And yeah, it's time for celebration. And it's really, really exciting. So thank you, Abe, for making that motion. And thank you, Commissioner Shattuck McNally for seconding and Mark for your praise, for Becca and Dan as well, and everyone in the chat, this whole process. So we're excited. And I want to just reflect back to just a couple weeks ago. And Commissioner Shattuck McNally, I see your hand is raised.
And maybe you're going to cover this, Allison, but I'm just so excited about this and sharing it. So I see that. But will we get a copy of the final changes and we'll get that emailed about the same time as this? I didn't see that. Will we get kind of emailed the press release? And I'm just wondering about some of that. I think you're going to share that, but I'm biting at the bit to be able to go out and talk about this because I have a town hall tomorrow, and so it'd be great. I wanted to kind of celebrate this. So thank you.
Ellie, I know you're coming off mute. You want me to just say the things that are already planned here real quick and run through these and you can add in
Well,
kind of on what we can do?
Yeah, yes, Commissioner. We will send this out as soon as possible. Becca, I'm not sure if we'll be able to send it out by the end of the day, but you and I can work after this to get the updated language to everyone. Becca, let me just continue since I put myself on mute really quick. So we met on October 15th. I want to thank you all who were in attendance, and I just wanted to reflect back that a lot of these rollout bullet points actually came out of our October 15th meeting where we came together just to talk about the implementation portion of this amazing 30-year vision. So as you may know, we have ways to visually represent this vision, not just the words, but we have our incredible vision poster that we could all print and post at our places of work, on our websites, other places like that, share on social media. We also have our website that is already established. I was gonna paste it in the chat, but it's too hard to paste and talk at the same time. So we've got a placeholder. Thank you, Becca, on our Forest Health Council website already. And so that will also be updated with these goals and actions. And we would like to then, of course, have some sort of press release. And we actually started this process in very draft form right after the vision portion was adopted. And so we're going to revisit that and be able to work on putting out a press release for these efforts of this council. And so those are immediate things that we can all do and that we will do administratively here at DNR to move forward and share this great work. The next things on the list are ideas that came out of that October 15th meeting when we were talking about the implementation. Becca, do you want to talk, not to popcorn back and forth, but do you want to talk about a few more of these ideas and pass it back to me?
Sure. There was a suggestion of sharing with the governor, which I think sounded like something you thought internally with DNR staff that you guys might be able to do. And the idea that you guys could leverage these recommendations um, in your committees or in the legislative committee um, for what you're going to do next year. Hopefully they will jive in what you're looking at recommending. Some kind of process to make sure new council members are introduced to the vision and strategy. So that would be a piece to develop probably internally for you all. Using this as a foundation for the breakfast happening in the end of January with the legislature. And then we also talked about having a sign-on or an adoption proclamation. And I have my staff already working on trying to create a process that will make it easy for folks to do that, that could then, once they sign on, hopefully have like a template press release or something related to that. So there's no point in signing on to something if you're not going to advertise and get media around that. So those were some of the things that had kind of come out and come up as opportunities from then, as well as even from the initial survey.
Yeah, thanks, Becca. And so if you see Courtney is putting some information in the chat as far as being able to share the goals and actions, we'll have to run it through our accessibility, accessibility specialist through the DNR, and then we'll be able to post it. But the vision poster itself is ready in prime time, so we can always be able to continue to share that. And I wanted to, administratively, Courtney, myself, and Roberta Anderson on the DNR team have also thought about an additional way to help with the implementation of the vision, or at least some strategies in the next year. And so before Julie, I see your hand is up. But if it's okay, I wanted to turn it to Courtney really quick to talk about an idea that we have.
Thank you, Allison. Thanks, Becca. So yeah, there's a large conversation happening about how this vision will be implemented and who will do the implementation. And we've been thinking there's a lot of brainstorming and research to be done there. And we were made aware of CU Boulder has a master's in the environment program, and groups of students there work on capstone projects. And so we've submitted a proposal for a student group, not to do implementation of the 30-year vision, but to help us understand how implementation could be done and how to track implementation. So in the proposal, we included things like this student group could interview people who help support the water plan or the outdoor strategy or the prescribed fire strategy. They could gather information about how these other plans and visions, and also noting the difference between a plan and a vision and a strategy, noting that this is a vision. What resources are used for implementation, who is doing implementation. So we thought this group could do some information gathering. And then we also thought they might be able to help us create something like a dashboard where the different goals and actions are noted, and people could potentially upload progress towards those actions and goals. So this is just an idea. We've made it through the first round of screening, and there's a second round of screening that happens later in November. So we'll know by the end of the year if this is something that the program would like to include, if the Masters in the Environment program would like to work on the Forest Health Council 30-year vision. But we thought it could just be some additional resources in the meantime while we're figuring out how implementation should be done. And so I just want to clarify again that the group will not be doing these things. They're not going to be increasing collaboration between federal and local partners. They are a group of students, but they're here to provide brain power and research and suggestions, and maybe they can build us a tool. So we're excited about the possibility of working with this group. I think what needs to happen is there needs to be some buy-in from the council. So we were hoping we all could take a vote that says, if the university and the program likes the proposal, that you all are open to a student group joining, this would be something that the DNR staff, we would be the ones interfacing with the students, but they would likely hop into a meeting. Maybe they'd ask some questions and do a presentation at the end. So I think I would pass it back to Dan or open it up for a discussion, and then hopefully we could have some clarity from the council if this is something you're interested in.
Great. Looks like we have some comments or questions. We'll have Julie and then Jody and then Mark.
Thank you, Director Gibbs. I think we're back to my the question I had originally, and Courtney touched on it just a bit there. I mean, I think this council today fulfilled its statutory duty to develop that plan and the visions and goals that as recommendations for actions. I guess my question maybe is a multi-part question. My first question is, do we need to then take those recommendations directly to the governor and get a proclamation from him recognizing the vision so that it builds steam? I guess that was my first question. My second question was along the lines of what Courtney was touching on, the hows and the who's. So whether it's the student program or other things, where do you envision this council's long-term role in the actual implementation? Is that something for the council? Is it something for DNR and others? And would you envision that perhaps the charter for this council is expanded to include something along the lines of implementation? I'm trying to imagine we've achieved a goal today. Now what does this council do, and how do we do it in relation to others? That's just trying to look at that next step and understand what this council's role is based on our charter.
Great. Thanks, Julie. I think the plan would be to get a copy of the 30-year vision to the governor. He's been aware of this, that we've been working on this for a while. So I've briefed him, every step of the way. But I think he would love to have, a copy of this. I don't think he needs to have like any stamp of approval or any proclamation saying, "Hey, I received this," or anything like that. I think it's really up to us to work towards implementation. And I believe these CU students could be, I guess you didn't say it, Courtney or Allison, it's almost like it doesn't come with a price tag of a FTE, right? So it's like folks that are willing to do some work for us to help navigate this at no cost of us, I believe, right? Yeah.
Yes, I would confirm it's a student group that doesn't need to be paid by DNR, but also that they won't be able to do any of the implementation. So I think that question that Julie asked of who will be the actors who are completing the actions and fulfilling the goals is still really valid. And I imagine that was something that this conversation, on this agenda was hoping to flesh out. The student group will help, I think, with process, and if there's any tools that need to be created, they can hopefully help us with that as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Jody, then Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to echo what Courtney said and what Julie had said. I think first I would like to say I think being clear about what the interns would be doing or helping, and I think it would be a great leveraging of resources without having to have that FTE and paying. I'm going to put in the chat something we just used and interned with our plans, and it was really helpful for us to do that. I'm hoping I can get it to go. But this intern put this whole plan together for us and overlapping all these plans and helped us cross-reference and things. And it's been really helpful. And we wouldn't have been able to have the staff time or capacity to do that. And so I think there is a lot of value in it. I mean, this CSU intern just blew us away with what he was doing. There's other things he's helping us with, and he's getting credit and he's learning a lot, and we're learning a lot from him. And it's empowering kind of the younger voices in our community that this is their future and their forest too. And I think engaging the youth into this plan and having some of their voices in it is maybe important, because I'm not in that younger age group anymore. And so I just think it's great to bring them in. And I also want to say this might help with workforce development. We might be building passion or excitement in folks who are looking at this as a career. And this might be a way to help with workforce development in ways that doesn't take any money, but it might inspire folks to continue to look at this. And so I think this is a great idea. And I think it would be helpful, since I know you were all kind of really stretched. It would be great to have this. And also, I think it might bring some fresh ideas from perspectives we haven't really had at the table or in some of these conversations. So I just wanted to share that as well. And if we need a motion, I'd be more than happy to make that. But I know there's some other hands raised. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for your thoughts on this. Mark, then Abe.
Yes, and how this is presented to the governor, I would like to see, however that presentation is made to him, I would like it to elicit as detailed a response directly from him as possible, in as many details, and detailed a response to this document, which would help us, guide us going forward, and also would be critical, I think, to getting what we're trying to do here actually in operation. And so however that's done, I would like, if there was a way to elicit a response from him that was as detailed as possible and direct to what's in the document, to me would be super helpful going forward and to this group going forward. And I don't have the magic way to do that, but that would be my goal.
Great. Thanks, Mark. Abe and then Veronica.
Thanks, Director Gibbs. Yeah, I think we're probably reading each other's minds here. I think it's more than appropriate to request a meeting with the governor to sit down and probably present this. I mean, we're all governor appointees. I think it'd be a really helpful touch point, Dan, honestly, to just maybe sit down with him, give the formal presentation, and just make sure that we're checking the box in terms of where he's at and what he's thinking about. And yeah, just have maybe a healthy and useful but brief dialogue with him about the plan. I imagine, as you said, you've already briefed him on the work we've been doing. So I do think that would be appropriate, and just to get a sense of some alignment in terms of this entire vision.
Great. Thanks so much for your thoughts on that. Appreciate that. Veronica?
Thank you, Director Gibbs. My comment is really, I'm going to lower my hand. I think it's a great idea to get the CSU students involved in this. To Commissioner Jody's comment, that's a great website, things that they put together. I think for the implementation piece of it, I think because it's going to look different for all of our communities, especially a rural community, it's going to look very different than, the Front Range. So I would say that we have quote unquote champions in, our own communities, and maybe it's subcommittees, I don't know if it's the Western Slope or how we divide that up, but something that we could do to narrow the focus for certain areas, because again, this plan is not going to look the same in every community. And so I just want to remind everybody of that, and how we can go forward and implement it by maybe just creating smaller subcommittees to help push this forward. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. Other thoughts on this?
Dan, I know that Courtney, sorry, I didn't raise my hand, but Courtney sort of ended her portion with the idea of a motion to move forward with the Masters of the Environment group, but we still have a little bit more discussion on this implementation piece. So I'm wondering, Dan, if we should move forward with a potential motion first and then continue this conversation on next steps.
Sure, let's do that. That sounds good.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion to move forward with these recommendations that that have been discussed so far.
Okay, utilize
to utilize the MENV group to help support DNR with helping with collaborating to help with the implementation of the 30-year the process for the implementation for the 30-year forest plan.
Okay, and do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say no or nay. The ayes carry, so we'll move forward with that. That's great. Allison?
Thank you, everyone. So let's just keep, let's keep talking about next steps for a few more minutes. Because as we've continued to have some similar discussions, and Abe, Commissioner Layden, I liked how you said we were all in each other's brains. But the work of the 30-year vision, and if you refer back, of course, that second page of the vision needs to have a paragraph revised, as mentioned earlier, with utilities, but it describes how this vision and these goals and strategies are shared amongst stakeholders and organizations throughout the state. And so that's where our rollout will be so important in sharing our vision with everyone. And so Courtney and I also have been talking about how amazing you all are and the networks that you all have within your own sectors, within your own organizations, to help spread the word and work through your networks. And so, Commissioner Medina, I really appreciate what you just said about how it looks different everywhere across the state, and also how every strategy or goal may not be something that every place can take on. So this is an evolving conversation. Becca, we can see, thank you so much for putting that up. And so I've got some ideas right now of how we keep moving forward in this level of uncertainty of exactly how. So first, Becca and I were reviewing the statute last week of all of this, and as mentioned, we have met. So I believe today we really met the requirement for the statute to develop a 30-year vision, but we also have a requirement to set annual. Was to meet the Forest Health requirement to set annual recommendations for action. And so I think we want to make sure to take time to understand what specific processes we may want to have to look at this on an annual basis. We heard at the last meeting that we didn't want to have additional committees, and that's where we are hoping that the Masters of an Environment group, internship group, if we get it, and we get that opportunity, that they might be able to develop a dashboard or a systematic approach that we can follow. Part of it, as Courtney said too, is to do a crosswalk of where are parts of our 30-year vision that are identified, and either not just identified, but potentially in motion on other plants and processes across the state. We think this is really valuable work to do, to really put some depth into all of these, to what maybe we can also see have some gaps, right? Maybe some of these strategies and goals that have been identified do not have a lot of support behind them yet. Maybe that's where we need to look at focusing our efforts in the future. So before we really close this discussion, I just wanted to know if we've got the ideas that were put in place, some more discussion and ideas of how to share with the governor, but is there anything else that you all feel we could be adding to this? And Becca, I see your hand is up.
Well, I just wanted to elaborate on, there's a breadth of goals and actions, and there's a couple in there that just really feel like big foundational things that probably need some Forest Health Council leadership. And so thinking about how I think that's the opportunity as you go into kind of work planning next year, and as each of your existing committees think about which ones of these goals and actions are maybe a little bit under our umbrella, or what can we take on. That's where you guys are setting your annual plans from what I've seen in your annual priorities. And So I just wanted to point out that there are a couple of those bigger goals around establishing baselines that involve convening teams that could be kind of an outside team of subject matter experts with a few Forest Health Council members to help guide something forward. Maybe akin to committees or like even subcommittees. I've engaged with a little bit some of the Fire Commission subcommittees that have outside people in addition to members of that commission who are able to bring in subject matter experts and work on things. And a couple of those goals would be like establishing a baseline characterization of the current and desired future forest conditions based on key indicators and the need to bring a team together around that, an interdisciplinary team. That's probably not likely to happen of just, anybody taking that on outside of the Forest Health Council really being behind it and helping to get it going. There's also a goal around baseline calculations to understand and right size expansion of wood manufacturing and production capacity. Those are kind of a couple of baseline ones in there that were really big goals. So I will leave it at that, but to think about what your processes are, I think is important to consider some of those larger goals that probably need Forest Health Council initiative.
Thanks, Becca. Does anyone have anything they would like to add? Because I also believe this will be a topic of discussion for all of our Forest Health Council meetings. And we'll be looking at our existing committees, the Leveraging Resources Committee and the Legislative Subcommittee, to incorporate this within their processes as well. Commissioner?
I don't know if you all clicked on that or know how to use it. Can I share just for a screen share just for me? Because we already have, when you talked about the plans, where do we see our goals and other plans? I wanted to kind of show what we have there because it kind of shows certain things like welfare and what's in what plan. And I just wanted to know if I could show it for 30 seconds to show you that maybe this is something we could build off of so that you can kind of line the plans if that would be okay. I'm not, it's just something I'm blown away with how we can, because we have so many plans going out there. I didn't know if I could do that for Mr. Chair just for a second, or Allison, just to kind of show that. So would that be okay?
Yeah, I
Okay,
think that's
I have multiple tabs up too. Let's see what I can make sure I get to it. Okay, here it is. Can everyone see that yet? There it is.
Yes, we can.
So if you see, it has, these are the hazards tab. There's lots of different tabs on there, but you can see all the you have subtopic areas. So you can unclick ecosystems or community or jurisdictions, but you can see where it talks about the section, the goal objective, the action, and just kind of, here's the Colorado State Forest Service, Estes Park, some Fort Collins or Larimer County multi-jurisdictional hazard plan with preparedness and development projects. So I just wanted to kind of share, this is what this intern did for us. And it's just kind of mind-blowing, but you can see how it has all these actions and stuff lined up too. And so I just wanted to just kind of let you know about this. It's pretty straightforward to how to use, well, I'm still learning how to use it, but it's I just wanted to share this as maybe an idea when you talked about where do we see our 30-year plan and other plans. This might be a tool that would be helpful. I know it's just mostly our area, but you can see it has actually transportation planning and towns and all kinds of things. So just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thanks. And Mark Morgan has his hand up.
Yes, I think one thing about this is maintaining the maximum possible flexibility, because if you look historically, challenges for forest and environment, I don't think we probably even know what our biggest challenge is going to be 5 years from now. Historically, they blow up and they create a lot of issues and a lot of focus. And I couldn't agree more than with Commissioner Medina, the fact that it's going to look different in different areas. And when these things blow up on you and these challenges occur, I just think whatever groups you envision or whatever processes you envision need to be as flexible as absolutely possible. Because I don't even think you know what your next big challenge is going to be 5 years from now. So just a thought.
Thank you, Mark. Well, we're a little over time, and I just want to say one more thank you to Becca, and your team for all the hard work, and thank you to everyone on the council for your work, all the stakeholders outside of the council that were a part of this process, and really just a huge win for all of us and for the last year. So thank you so much, Becca. I'm going to turn it back over to Director Gibbs.
Yeah, I just second that. Thanks so much, Becca, for all your hard work, and I really appreciate everyone's involvement and really great to hear everyone's thoughts on this and how we can really move this forward. Um, I just want to comment, a few folks, Abe and Mark and maybe some others mentioned kind of what the governor's involvement would be, or maybe setting up a meeting or having some feedback and stuff. What I'd propose to do is let me circle with my team and just see what's possible, what's on his calendar, like maybe tie into our next meeting to have him come to it possibly. Maybe we set up a separate event. This isn't our first like, major, plan and that we've worked on. We have the water plan, we have the Colorado Outdoor Strategy, we have a lot of other really important plans that we've had in the state, and the governor's involvement has depending on what the plan is, he's been involved in different ways. For the outdoor strategy, it was more or less like a press conference, kicking that off in Colorado Springs at our outdoor partners conference. And water plan, he was involved, but there was kind of like looking at Amy Moyer, but it was, kind of like and Madeline, but a lot of the water community kind of took the lead a lot on like extra events outside of the plan to really highlight the plan. But if we could do some brainstorming internally, I'd love to come back with you all with some ideas, if that's all right, because um, I just don't have the levers on the governor's schedule. So I wish I did at times, or maybe I don't. Does that sound good, everyone?
That would be fine.
Okay. Okay,
That
great.
sounds good.
Okay, good. Um, Next, I know we've spent a lot of time on the 30-year vision, but we also have our annual report that we do as well. That's also really important. So I'd like to turn it over to Courtney to kind of talk about where we're at with that, and that's the annual report to the governor and to the legislators. So, Courtney.
Thank you, Dan. And as Director Gibbs mentioned, this is one of our statutory duties to produce this report each year. And really the goal is to summarize what has happened between September and August of each year. So this was sent out to everyone last week. I'm going to very briefly share my screen and walk you through the sections in case there was anyone who did not have a chance to read it. It starts off with a letter from our council chair, Dan. A little bit about the council. This does not change year to year. It's what is our duties? How do we operate? It has a list of our council members, so you all are here on this list. It walks through the legislative intent, including our statutory duties, and then we get into the part that changes regularly. We have a summary of the different topics that we discussed this year, listed from each of our agendas. We discuss the trip that the council took down to Archuleta County and the tour that we attended that Commissioner Veronica Medina helped set up. Then it goes through some of the highlights and accomplishments this year, including the 30-year vision for forest health. We have the beautiful vision, and then as well as the text of the vision. Because we just adopted the goals and actions today, they are not included. And also because we have a September cutoff, the goals and actions will be included next year in the upcoming report. We also go through the actions of the committees. So the committees are extremely busy and get a lot of work done throughout the year. So we've included the legislative recommendations for 2026 that were presented to the Wildfire Matters Interim Committee this year by the Legislative Committee. We also include a summary of the work that the Committee on Leveraging Resources has been doing. We go into the Forest Resilience Planning Guide a little bit. There's also a summary of the work of the Joint Prescribed Fire Subcommittee. And then we're touching back in on the 2023 administrative recommendations. There's still 2 recommendations that have not been fully satisfied. One is a presentation on vapor pressure deficit, and we are happy that Brett Wolk and Eric Tillman are helping us pull together a presentation on vapor pressure deficit, and we're going to be having a conversation on that and adaptive management at our first meeting in 2026. And then we're still working to pull together a conversation about how NGOs and state agencies can support reforestation on federal lands. Finally, the report ends with just a list of our committee members. And yeah, I hope that everyone had a chance to read it ahead of time. We had one small correction come in between last Wednesday and now, and that was a spelling correction on a council member's name. So that will be corrected. I'm curious if anyone had any last minute changes that they did not have time to email me, but they want to see made before this is approved. And I know I speak quickly, so apologies.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully everyone's had a chance to take a look at this, but yeah, this is our annual report and a lot to be proud of, obviously, in there. Any questions or comments, concerns? Jody?
I just want to thank Courtney and everyone who worked on this. I know you guys are having a lot going on, and I know she does a lot of the grants and cycles and a lot of work, but I think I know she put a lot of this together, and it flows well, and I think it tells the story well, and I like how it kind of just seems to flow. And I want to just commend her for a job well done. I really liked it. I've read through it twice now, and I think it really tells the Forest Health Council's work very pretty comprehensively without being too jargony, and so I appreciated that. So thanks, and I will, unless there's other comments, I'll make a motion to approve the annual plan as presented. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made to approve the annual report and second as well. Is there any further discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposition? Say no or nay. Okay, the ayes carry it. Congrats, everyone. That's a lot to be proud of, too. This has been a great meeting of celebrations. And just moving on, just thinking of all the great items that we've had, just in this meeting alone, the 30-year vision and the work on the Forest Resilient Planning Guide has been so amazing too. We also want to look at this coming year. 2026 is, right around the corner. And so with that, let's pass it back over to Courtney to kind of talk about some of the results that we've had. That's reflective in items that you think we should work on.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah. At the end of each year, we not only adopt or approve the annual report confirming what we've completed, but we also try to look ahead and create priorities for the year to come. And this is really helpful because it helps Allison and I put together agendas for the following year. And so we really want to take the pulse of this group and understand, what are you interested in focusing on in the year to come? Who would you like to hear from? What would you like to accomplish? So I think I've been hearing a lot already that the 30-year vision is still going to be a big part of what people want to focus on. And I think that as we move through this exercise that I'm about to start, we should think about weaving the 30-year vision and the Forest Resilience Planning Guide and the Forest Tracker into all of these things. So I'm going to advocate for that. I would welcome you to, express your support of that if that does rise to the top. I'm going to share a survey with you all. I know not very many of you had the chance to fill out the survey I shared ahead of time, so you're going to have a chance to fill it out now in a new format. And then we can look together at where does everyone's priorities land, and then we can open up a little bit of a discussion to say, what do you want to hear about next year? how can we weave all of these things together? So first, I think I'll share my screen and remind you all of our statutory duties. And I'm going to zoom in. And I'm going to, just wait a few minutes and let you all read these. Excuse me while I try to fix the formatting and making it a little easier for you to read, actually. I think this would make it easier. And maybe I'll just briefly read some of these high level. One of the duties is landscape scale planning to identify state level priorities for forest restoration, wildfire risk reduction, and related management. So like doing planning as a council. Also monitoring trends related to forest ecosystem health, and that includes climate adaptation. We're tasked with supporting forest-based collaboratives by monitoring and identify opportunities to support them. We're tasked with identifying strategies for building sustained capacity in our workforce. This includes collaboration among agencies and jurisdictions, partnerships, funding, innovative funding, workforce development, which we've managed to make progress on quite a bit, which I'm very happy about. We're tasked with developing and supporting solutions to manage and utilize woody biomass. And then, of course, the 30-year vision, which we decided to prioritize at our last prioritization process. So we've made great progress. We also have a few process-based duties that we're tasked with, like creating legislative recommendations, creating the annual report. And because we're going to continue to do those, I did not include them in the survey. But this is what the council is tasked with. So I'm now going to turn us over. I'm going to switch my screen over to a survey. Whoa. It's interesting. I'm having trouble changing my tabs. Let's see. There it is. So I'm hoping you all can see this. Are you seeing a Mentimeter poll coming up? Can I get some affirmation that anyone is seeing a poll on the screen? Okay, great. So you should be able to go to menti.com and type in this code that you see at the top, or you can scan the QR code on your phone, and you'll be asked to rank these statutory duties that I've just shown in, I think it's 1 to 7. And then we'll be able to look at the results together live. Good, it's working. I think I'm seeing that 4 out of 12 people who are in the survey have submitted results, so I'll wait until everyone has had a chance.
I think I'll add, Courtney, you don't have to rank all 7. Is that correct? Right? If you just want to rank 1 or 2 as a priority, you don't have to put all of them as a priority.
Okay. Thanks, Brett. And you are ranking them. So it's not that you're picking 2 to be first place. It's you tell the survey which is your number 1, which is your number 2, which is your number 3. And if you don't have really opinion on what comes after that, I think you can submit the results before you finish ranking all of them. Okay, we have a few more results to receive.
Courtney, it's something that I may state the obvious, but it seems like the 30-year vision includes everything on here in one way or another, kind of.
Yeah, and I think that's even what we named last year. Let's focus on the 30-year vision because all of these other things are included. So I'm enjoying seeing the 30-year vision rise to the top. That feels good that we'll focus on that likely in 2026. And then it is nice maybe just to note the next two highest ranked items so that as we're putting together topics and discussions, and we could even pull this up at the beginning of every meeting and say, this is what you all said you wanted to focus on in the year to come. Commissioner Shattuck McNally, what do you think?
Thank you, Courtney and Mr. Chair. I agree. I think I was thinking the same thing. The 30-year erosion includes everything, but I'm also looking for guidance from the chair and staff about kind of setting expectations with stretched resources and the work that we're doing in all these committees and how big that 30-year vision is. It should be set up expectations about if it's going to be prioritized, or, what section or what piece or what does that look like? Because if we set this, these are really great and broad priorities going forward, but we may not be able to even tackle several of them with just kind of all of the stretched resources. I think we all recognize we have to make progress and implement and get moving on it. But I'm wondering how we set expectations just as a council so we can feel like we're making progress and not wonder, what can we get done in the next year? I'm just curious about that too. I hope my question was clear. Just wondering how much capacity do we have to accomplish? How many priorities, and should we just focus on one or two, or again, we have lots of great priorities here. Thank you.
Any thoughts regarding Jody's comments? I guess I was thinking like the 30-year vision includes so much of all of this really in different ways. So if we narrowed it, and I think the university students will help us, a big part of implementing is figuring out, what does it cost, or do we need more staffing to work with local communities? What role the State Forest Service plays, what role we play, is there a role for public safety to play, all the different partners involved. So I think we need to flesh out key components of the 30-year vision would be helpful for me.
I agree, and I'll also say that yeah, in terms of like how much capacity is there to get all these things done, I would say when we're ranking this, it's sort of the question of what does the council want to focus on, less about like what does staff have capacity for. I mean, staff is really here to set up the meetings, create agendas for you all, bring on speakers, help you with brainstorming. But I think that question is really best answered by the council members. And in terms of leadership vision, you all are the leaders of this process. And so if it feels better just to have one priority for the year to come, that works well for me too. So that would be my thought about it. And I also see Commissioner Layden has his hand up.
I do. Thank you, Courtney, and thank you, Director Gibbs. From my perspective, as a county commissioner, and just thinking about my role in this council, if I were to narrow it to one singular critical priority for this group, no surprise, it would be around emergency management. I tend to agree with Director Gibbs that I think everything we're doing will inherit and involve the 30-year vision. I think that is a great long-term guiding document. We've done a lot of long-term work. I think it'd be really helpful for this group to start thinking also about short-term, immediate issues. And when we envision what does the average citizen contemplate that we represent, I represent about 400,000 folks, and if I were to ask, a majority of those where are they at, they'd probably say when it comes to forest health, make sure that the forests are still there. So those landscape based priorities around wildfire mitigation, prevention, in collaboration with other agencies would be something I would really love to see this group focus in on, and that our agendas are less about. And I wouldn't, I wouldn't phrase it as a lunch and learn, but because I think it's really valuable to have guest speakers come in. But getting back to the leadership role that we're charged with, to really have our agendas focused around actionable ideas related to forest health, and for us to really create space and have room for those discussions among council to populate our conversations with ideas and advance them forward. So just a thought there. I would love to see emergency management, and wildfire mitigation in coordination with other agencies be one of the major, if not the top priority for next year. Thanks, you guys.
That's helpful. Yeah, thank you. Other thoughts? Mark.
Yes. If industry is to be a participant in this, the single biggest regulating factor for their ability to act as a tool for your people's management goals is consistency of program, whether it's in stewardship work or timber harvest or utilization. It doesn't matter what it is, but the consistency of the program allows industry to develop the capacity and respond to be able to do the choice of work that you're trying to get done in your management projects. So whatever agency it is, the Federal Forest Service, State Forest Service, any other agencies that are going to attempt to get work done or fuels reduction work in communities, the consistency of that program is the number one issue that keeps cropping up within the timber industry discussions.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Courtney?
Thanks, Dan. What I want to do is move us through the next couple slides. I think we've accomplished what we wanted in this one. We've ranked our statutory duties. The next slide is where you have the chance to name what other emerging priorities there are for you. And these are things that are going to be recorded. So Commissioner Layden, I heard you say emergency management. You want that to be something that's discussed. If anyone else has anything, Mark, I'm hearing consistency of programs that you want to name and have show up on this screen. That would be great. And then I'll just give you a heads up. The last slide is what actions do you all want the council to take in the year to come? So Abe, I'm very interested. I'm always intrigued, and I'm on board with an action-oriented council meeting. So the next slide will be your chance to really type in and help shape the agendas, because we would love to hear from you all what you want these agendas to be, how you want to spend your time during these council meetings in 2026. So I think you should still be able to use the same link to add emerging priorities.
The QR code.
I just dropped the link into the chat, and let me know if that doesn't work. I can go back and find the QR code. Will someone let me know?
Move it to the first slide, or does the
Okay.
QR code just go away? There.
And I think I put the link in the chat, so you should be able to click on the link in the chat to open it up, or go ahead and scan the QR code again. I do see we got at least one through, so the system is working. And maybe you all don't have anything to add, that's okay. We just wanted to make sure we captured if there was anything else that it wasn't in the statutory duties that you wanted to hear about. And I'll just leave this up for a couple, maybe one more minute before moving on or discussing. These are great. Thank you. I'm imagining one thing we can do is take these priorities, also crosswalk them with the 30-year vision, the Forest Resilience Planning Guide, because I know these are integrated in there, and then also start to address them that way. But it's good to know out of, I think, the 60 actions in the 30-year vision, sort of maybe which ones are most important to you all. I want to move us on to the last slide, and then I think we can circle back and we can say, given the results of the ranking, given these other emerging priorities, given what you all say you want to accomplish in 2026, is there any sort of guiding, it's funny, I don't want to say vision because we just created a vision, but guiding, few words or topics that can help Allison and I build the next couple meetings? So I'm going to skip ahead and then we can come back. And this one I think is one of the most pragmatic ones. The other ones are conversation topics, and this is the question of what do you want to accomplish? So this I think is going back to what Commissioner Layden was saying, like what can we be discussing during the council meetings? What would you like to see on the agendas? Really helpful to see all this come through. I'm seeing some things that will take place outside of council meetings, I believe, like more engagement with the legislature and governor. And then a lot of suggestions of you want to spend your time at the council meeting working on the 30-year vision and figuring out implementation and action and resources needed for that. So this is very helpful. I think we could spend some good time at our next council meeting diving into, I think we can clump some of these and spend some time diving into them. Okay, we only have a few more minutes left for this, and I think I'm realizing we all always need to give more time to this discussion. I think even if the council, I think these resources, what we've captured, this will help us throughout the rest of 2026. I'm not actually sure then if we need a motion. Um, I think this is more of a discussion. So I'm going to flip back and forth between some of these slides. I'm just going to summarize again. The 30-year vision is, in terms of statutory duties, is what this council would like to continue to focus on. There are some other priorities which I think would crosswalk pretty well to the 30-year vision, but I can also take a deeper look at that and make sure that these are all included and see if we can include some more of these priorities into the discussions. Also, I will share all of these items with the committees because the committees are meeting. The legislative committee is meeting bi-weekly, the Leveraging Resources Committee once a month. So if you're interested in taking greater action or further action as a member of the council, I would really encourage you to join a committee. I will share these results with the committees. And then in terms of what you'd like to see done by the council, this is helpful. And I'll share all of these results out with the entire council after the call.
Yeah,
I'm hearing a
Courtney,
lot about.
maybe. Oh, I'm
Mhm.
sorry. I was just thinking maybe you can like help bring all the common themes together and we could report back.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Any other questions or comments or flags that people want to make around this process of brainstorming before we move on? Does this, I mean, we've just done it live, so I know that it's the most recent prioritization.
Any thoughts? Are we on the right track? Thumbs up.
I see a question in the chat.
Yes, or thumbs up is yes. Yeah. What's the question?
Madeline is wondering if the Colorado Fire Commission has emergency management within their scope.
Emergency management does fall under their scope normally. Office of Emergency Management and Department of Public Safety, for example. All right. I don't think we need to have a formal vote on this. I mean, this looks good. So if there's not any more questions or comments on this, let's move to the roundtable updates. Does that sound good for everyone? So there's an opportunity to share with everyone. I know you are all so busy outside of the meetings that we have here, but for you to give us a snapshot of what you're working on, anything that kind of relates or pertains to the work that we do here at the Forest Health Council. And just kind of raise your hand or feel free to jump in with any updates you'd like to share. Yeah, Christina.
Yeah, thank you, Director Gibbs. So a few updates from the State Forest Service. Matt McCombs, it will be putting forth an op-ed about mountain pine beetle, predictions of an increase in numbers and outbreak, more around the Front Range type of communities. So that will hopefully come out soon. We're sending it to the Colorado Sun on Friday. So it'll be out of our hands at that point, and hopefully they'll put it out in the next few days. So more to come on that. Our forest restoration wildfire risk mitigation grant program just closed, so I don't have any specific numbers on that, but we're looking forward to seeing how many applications we got. So more information on our furworm program. The nursery still under construction, going well. They've had really good weather, so things are going great with that. And then lastly, want to recognize Denver Water. They put forth a 40-year anniversary for the State Forest Service Denver Water partnership. So the State Forest Service has been Denver Water's forester for 40 years at this point in time for their lands management, and just want to say thank you to Denver Water for that recognition of that partnership, which is so important for us. So thank you. Those are my updates.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Those are great updates. Others. Updates. Jody and then Veronica.
Just wanted to share, I don't know if you have any messages for me to share, but I've been asked by the National Association of Counties to fly in November to meet with several members of the delegation and groups on rural issues. And one of those is we're meeting with the USDA. And so I just wanted to flag that. Just finishing they've been planning these fly-ins really quick, and I'm hopefully maybe the federal government will be in session, but it's pretty intensive couple of days, and I didn't know if you all wanted me to mention about wildfire and watersheds, and if there's any suggestions there or anything. I'm not sure what the whole agenda is, but I wanted to share I'm going to be going to advocate for counties in November for mostly rural issues, and I feel like this is also a real issue. And so we have meetings with USDA and others. So I just wanted to flag that for you all. And I can just speak silent for the Forest Health Council. I'll be speaking on I sit on the Environment, Energy, and Land Use Steering Committee and the Rural Action Caucus and Resiliency Committee. So a lot of this overlap. So I just wanted to flag that for you all if you had any points you wanted me to focus on.
Is this for the NACO conference?
It's not a conference. They've been starting to fly some of us in. They call them fly-ins, where they pick some of us on some of these steering committees and fly in a small group of us to go to some special meetings, and where we're meeting with senators and representatives and some of the departments. And so we haven't had this before. Don't know if it's under the new leadership of NACO. And so we had one in transportation 2 weeks ago with our Commissioner Stevens from Larimer County and others. And then I just got this offer a couple of days ago. And so it's moving fairly quickly. So I just wanted to, sometimes there's opportunities to plant seeds. And so when we just voted in that charter, I just wanted to share that this is something that just started happening. What day is it? Wednesday, on Monday morning. And so it's moving fairly quickly for me. And so I just wanted to kind of flag that I'm going to be talking with points that NACO are pushing, but also I think a lot of the work that we're doing is aligned with a lot of the NACO's priorities and initiatives. So I just wanted to flag that. So thank you.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say definitely let folks know the work we're doing, and as it pertains to your meetings, I think that's appropriate for sure. Yeah. Veronica.
Thank you. I just wanted to let you know that last week was National Forest Products Week. So I did a proclamation through the Board of County Commissioners declaring National Forest Products Week. And with that, I always pride myself in saying we don't do empty proclamations. So the action that we're taking behind that proclamation is we're going to be partnering with private businesses for some of these grant opportunities that are really meant for government. And a lot of these private entities are unable to apply for them because they have to be government, initiated. So we're going to partner with some of our private businesses in order to help them get these grants, whether we're a pass-through or how we need to do that. We're going to look really hard on working with our local community, because with that, it will not only help diversify our economy, but it will also help with affordable housing by keeping a lot of that wood logs in our community for building affordable homes. And it also will help with the fire mitigation, and in turn will also help with our insurance rates, because as most of us know, we've talked a little bit about it today, it really hurts our communities when homeowners can't afford insurance, or they've just been dropped for no reason, and so on and so on. But also, like I said, it will diversify our economy with an industry that has a very long history in Archuleta County, which is, the timber industry. And so I'm really excited about that. We've already gotten a lot of great response from the community. And so I look forward just to reporting back out on how many small businesses or what we've been able to accomplish with this proclamation. So thank you.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, other updates. Eric.
Hello. Hope I'll see if this is interesting. If not, I I can abbreviate what I share or not share things in the future. But on the workforce development side, I just want to, at least on the education front of that, just note that we just completed our fall census to have a count of our current students enrolled in the Forest and Rangeland Stewardship Department, and we've got really robust enrollment still. We have about 602 total students, both undergraduate and graduate students in our program. And among those, we have multiple degrees and specializations, but we have, I think, multiple that are relevant to the work we do. Our forest fire science continues to be a really strong concentration with high enrollment as well. And we maybe just another note through the workforce development efforts from this group in the past. We've been working through part of those, motivated by that, to engage with community colleges, and we're working on developing a 2+2 and having that more formalized with Front Range Community College. And then ultimately our goal will be to be able to have that available to roll out with other community colleges as well for those students who choose and who want to do 2+2, so complete a degree or complete training at a community college and then continue on to join us here in Fort Collins. Really excited about that. We made a lot of progress on that in this last year, so we should have that implemented pretty soon. Our degrees are accredited to, and we are just in the final stages of going through the reaccreditation process with the Society of American Foresters. So I just met with them last week, and we should have a final response within the next sort of 30 days, and everything seems great. And I think also will provide us some good traction to move forward with the things we want to do going forward, which one of those is to build in more experiential and hands-on opportunities for our students. So I think that report will actually give us some good traction to be able to move forward with that. So anyways, just wanted to share a little bit on that front, on the workforce development on the education side.
That's awesome. Those are great numbers you have there. That's awesome.
Yeah, really excited about that. Particularly, just given concerns overall about a demographic cliff and how that might influence enrollment in the future. We've held pretty steady. We saw a little decline this year, but it was actually for a really positive reason, because we're actually graduating students faster, which is something we've been trying to do as well. And so our first year enrollments and transfer enrollments actually increased this year, even though our overall numbers are a little bit low. But again, that's because we're getting students out faster, which is part of what we're trying to do, streamline the process for them.
That's great. Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Abe, you're up next.
Thanks, Director Gibbs. And thanks everybody. Really good updates. Sounds like a lot of good work happening throughout the state and in your individual capacities. In Douglas County, really pleased to have authorized a significant budget move for next year to build, the state's only, I guess, county-owned hangar for our heli-TAC team. Up to this point, we've had the state's only county-owned heli-TAC that stays during season, and we approved it for year-round last year. It was located outside of our jurisdiction during the off-season, but we continue to make the argument that there is no off-season. It's January 1st through December 31st, as we all learned from the Marshall Fire. So we will be building a climate-controlled hangar right in the heart of Douglas County to house that helicopter year-round. And we're still continuing to work on another superlative, the country's only county-owned biochar facility. We did break ground on that this last year. Really excited to process that woody biomass and partner with governments and the private sector to get all that processed. So more to come, but Director, pleased to offer that up as a potential site visit if this group would be interested in doing a field trip next year. Maybe we can have you all out to the biochar facility once we've done a little bit more in terms of the earth moving.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for these updates. And I would love to personally tour that facility. And I know there's quite a few other members, I'm sure, that would love to do it as well. So let us know when you give a thumbs up when it's ready for us to visit, and let's get that scheduled. That'd be great.
You got it. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Okay, Amy.
Thanks, Director Gibbs. I just wanted to add that we continue to learn more and more each day on post-fire impacts in Rio Blanco County related to the Lee Fire. This exposes a lot of different areas that this council can stay engaged on in terms of what funding resources exist when you're in emergency management scenarios. What does post-fire restoration look like? Certainly has severe impacts on the West Slope and areas with less capacity. And so, in my role in my organization, we're working very closely on more of the water resources impacts and looking at how we can support infrastructure needs, whether it's our ditch systems that were blown out or diversion structures, looking at the town of Rangeley's need from a water quality perspective. But I just wanted to add, certainly there are opportunities for this Forest Health Council to engage on lessons learned with the post-fire efforts on this fire and others. So certainly think there are also opportunities to get on the ground and see some of the impacts, but a good opportunity to stay engaged and look at where there are areas, capacity gaps, funding gaps to help support needs across the state in the future.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, keep us updated on what you learn for sure. Okay, other updates, just feel free to raise your hand or just speak. I have a few updates. Allison shared some great details about the the state budget and stuff, but we are yeah, Friday's a big day. We the DNR is doing quite well. There's just real challenges at the state budget, so there's just cuts that will be made, but we're doing just fine. The DNR is mostly a cash funded agency for the most part. So in many cases, we need just like spending authority to do the programming that we do. But anyways, yeah, Friday I'll be making some calls and letting folks know kind of what the budget for the DNR looks like. I have a few personnel kind of staff changes I want to make sure everyone's aware of. That Wendy Padilla is my new deputy director for the DNR. Many of you have worked with Tim Mock in the past. Tim Mock moved over to Colorado Parks and Wildlife to be the deputy over there. And really miss Tim in his role, but Wendy has really hit the ground running, and she's just an amazing person to have on my senior leadership team, and she's really has just awesome experience. Kind of started actually at Parks and Wildlife when she was a teenager, believe it or not, and then has experience kind of leadership role at Parks and Wildlife, but then also moved to be my COO, and now this current role. So I'm really happy with her and her in this new position. I mentioned earlier, Allison Lurch, thank you for your willingness to step up and be even more of a leader than you are already, but to be in this assistant director role, which is really important for the DNR, and your title is Forest Health and Wildfire Mitigation Assistant Director. So really happy with that too. And then a few other updates. Tomorrow, Allison and our co-swap team are actually heading to Steamboat. I have to head to Denver. I'd rather go to Steamboat, but they're going to go there with Lieutenant Governor as well as our new general for the National Guard, General Davis, to really highlight really unique partnership of proactive forest health and treatment areas just outside of Steamboat, and really glad that you all could make that. Yeah, too bad you can't take me with you, but I'm glad you can go. And then also thinking of our co-swap program, November 3rd is the time frame that the window will close for applications for our workforce development grant program. So we have $6.8 million. This is actually our largest award yet. And so hopefully we're optimistic that we'll have a lot of different folks that applied for this. But there's still time. So if there's entities that you work with, please encourage them to get that application in. Our co-swap is also supporting a prescribed fire on Adams Ranch. This is on Ute Mount Ute, one of their ranches in the Southwest. So that's really awesome that we're working that partnership. On the waterfront, yesterday I was down in Denver for the C9 Summit. That brings together all of our roundtables around the state, as well as leadership for Water Conservation Board and just kind of like water leaders more or less from every corner. And that meeting went really well. It was ongoing today as well. They just finished just a little while ago. So glad we're still continuing to do those meetings to bring people together on water. And also thinking of water too, a couple of weeks ago, Colorado filed a response to the Nebraska U.S. Supreme Court case. So this is our response to Nebraska suing us in the Supreme Court regarding the South Platte River Compact. And this compact's been around since 1923. And we feel very strongly that we're in compliance. And so we're optimistic that this lawsuit may just be thrown out, but we'll see as it progresses. We're also working towards the Colorado Outdoor Strategy implementation. We've worked over the past year with Great Outdoors Colorado, Parks and Wildlife, the DNR, and the governor's office to really work towards the development of this Colorado outdoor strategy that really looks at like conservation, climate resiliency, recreation, and funding mechanisms all together and not kind of siloed out. And so it's been awesome partnership. The OED office too has been a great leader in this as well. And so thank you, Samantha. And really kicking off this, just thinking of all the plans. Obviously, we're talking about the 30-year vision, but with this particular plan, we have a really amazing partner in Great Outdoors Colorado that contributed $50 million investment over 5 years to work towards, implementing this. So it's not just like a plan that's on the shelf. Me personally, I'm just, busy traveling the state constantly, and whether it's like wildlife, oil and gas, land issues, you name it, I'm maybe in your backyard. I'm in Summit County right now, but Denver tomorrow. So that's it for me. Any other updates from folks? Okay, see none. Let's move to see if there's any public comment. Are there any folks here that have been patiently listening that would like to speak? Going once, going twice. Okay, we don't have any public comment. So just to wrap things up, I just really appreciate everyone for joining today. We really accomplished so much together today. We should be really proud of all the work that we're doing to collaborate and really work on, focusing on forest health and wildfire preparedness and really putting our heads together on these really important topics. Hopefully you all have on your agenda the legislative breakfast, and that is on January 29th at the state capitol. So it'd be awesome if we could have, our participation there to really, highlight the good work we're doing, but also educate legislators that may not be aware of the work that we're doing. And then looking at Julie's question, do we have a date for our next meeting? I am not sure. Do we have one yet, or we're working on it? Okay, we're working on it.
Yeah. We do not have a date for our next meeting, but we're working on it, and we usually try and put together all 4 dates for the next year. So we'll send that out as soon as possible.
Yeah. But again, we do have the 29th of January, so please put that on your calendar, and it'd be awesome to see everyone there. So with that, again, thanks for everyone's involvement, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and have a great Halloween right around the corner. Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.